Oh, no, that's. It's on now. Is this one just not as good? Seems okay, right?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, September sixth, 2022. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we please start off with a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza. She will be,
She'll be late.
Mhm.
She'll be here.
and Council President Brito.
Yeah, thank you. The chair recognizes a motion for the city council to meet and close executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2 litigation and collective bargaining as set forth on the post agenda. Anyone like to make a motion at this point in time to proceed in executive session? We have anyone like to second that motion? Second. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, a motion to go in executive session was passed by a vote of 4-0. We will proceed in executive session and return immediately following. Thank you.
When you're ready, just hit it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 6, 2022. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands. Thank you. Deputy Clerk, may we start with a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Council President Brito.
Yeah, next item, please.
Next item, motion to seal executive session minutes.
Have a motion to seal the executive session minutes.
So move.
Second.
Any- Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Please.
Next item, consent calendar. For discussion and possible vote, council journals, executive session minutes from July 19th, 2022. Executive session minutes from August 16th, 2022. Regular meeting minutes, August 16th, 2022. Budget session minutes from August 30th of 2022. We also have notice of new property numbers, one at 7 Violent Avenue, another at 11 Lynn Avenue, 5 Lynn Avenue, 17 Payette Street, and 5 Industrial Way. And then we have tax abatements in the amount of $3,197.26.
Any questions from the council?
On move to approve.
Anyone
We
like to say-
also have a previously approved permit and license also for a read-in. It's a block party from 18 Barnesdale Road. The event was on August 20th of 2022. It was 12 to 4.
So we do have a motion for
Amend my motion to include the read-in license, the block party. So move to approve all of those things.
Second with all the amendments.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item, licenses for discussion and possible vote. I do have motion to bundle if you choose to do so.
Yes.
Okay. Motion to bundle licenses C1 through C13.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Clerk, may we have a vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Next item.
Motion to approve licenses C1 through C13.
Anyone like to make a motion on this?
So move. C1 to C113.
Second that motion?
I'll second.
Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Next item, please.
So if you're waiting for a license, it just got approved.
So-
Congratulations.
Anyone here for a license?
Yep, Gary, you can.
Gary, you're all set. No?
You're
No,
good.
you're good.
Good to go. Have a great night. I didn't see anyone.
Next item.
Did you want, who did you want to do?
Let's see, one, two,
So I got all the licenses. We're on proclamations and presentations. I have green energy. We also, I know you had the appetite to move up.
Mr.
the
President,
department.
This time with no objection, I'd like to move up on the agenda, the presentation by the school department and their presenters.
We're gonna have a
Yeah.
quick presentation by the school department before we move into green energy. Please proceed. Only if you turn the mic on.
I bet you didn't expect to see me up here asking for money again since I'm retired, but not really. In January, I do make my swan song. So I'm here for one last time to ask you to approve stage 2, which is a $148 million bond that we are projecting for Martin Middle School and for Waddington, as well as capital improvement projects for the other school around this city. I'd like to introduce to you Sam Bradner. I think you've met Sam before. He's our OPM on the job. And Jim Jordan from AI3, who's our architects on the job. Stage 2 is part of the RIDE process. It has to be submitted by September 15th, and then RIDE reviews it. We go back and forth with RIDE, and sometime in December, RIDE approves these projects after much deliberation back and forth with the city. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sam Bradner.
Great. Council members, hello, Sam Bradner with the Peregrine Group based in Rumford. Jim Jordan's going to join me from AI3. And we're going to walk through a portion of this presentation A lot of the information in the beginning pages is actually information that we reviewed with this group back in May when we approved the amount for the total bond. So we can certainly go back to any of those questions on that process, but if we could jump forward to slide 10. Jim is going to walk us through basically the key elements of the stage 2 submittal, which is the design for the two main schools, as Ms. Crowley mentioned, Martin Middle and Waddington Elementary. We'll talk a little bit also just about the capital improvements that are being proposed across the district. But just to kind of reflect on where we've been in the process, we started this back in January of this year with the team coming on board, exhaustive analysis across all the buildings in the district. AI3 and a team of their engineers and architects walked through every single building, did full analysis, spent a lot of time in the late spring or late winter, early spring, synthesizing all that data, and then also doing community visioning with teachers, with students, with faculty, and some members of the community, really to understand what were the goals for the two main schools, Waddington and Martin Middle. Those resulted in an output that Jim can reflect on tonight a little bit, and then ultimately led to some of the concept designs that we presented to you back in May when we did set that first initial number. So what we've really been doing since May is evolving those designs, and then ultimately that resulted in plans that went to the cost estimator at the beginning of August. And that's the results that we'll be able to present at the end of this presentation tonight. Our final steps are review by this body and a vote for consideration of advancing the stage 2. And if that happens this evening, then we'll have the last few pieces remaining that we'll be assembling by the end of this week, going out for print and actually submitting next week. It's due on the 15th to RIDE, and they will then start their review. I would say that we've had several productive discussions with the leadership team at RIDE to make sure that this project is aligning with their expectations about, especially the two major projects, but then also thinking about comprehensively what we're doing for the entire district. So I'll turn it over to Jim, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, council members and council president. My name is Jim Jordan with AI3 Architects. And as Sam mentioned, for the last 6 months, my design team and his OPM team have really been collaborating on the stage 2 application, which is a pretty complex application. It's over 1,500 pages in length. And really the stage 2 application is a funding exercise that defines the need and cost for projects throughout the district. Tonight, I'll provide a brief overview of those projects, 3 projects in particular, not focused too much on the capital improvement projects, which are also part of the stage 2 application, but the 3 main projects. The first of which is the Martin Middle School project. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that there is a program which identifies the overall spaces and quality of spaces that are included in the stage 2 application. And we worked very closely with administrators, faculty, staff, and students at a number of visioning sessions that Sam alluded to earlier. I think there were 4 in total. And they really identified what kinds of spaces are going to make up a modern 21st century middle school environment. That, coupled with us bringing in experience from other middle schools that we've designed over the last 20 years, you start to see the summary of what kinds of spaces and the size of those spaces on this page here. The spaces identified in orange identify all the middle school related programs. The spaces below that in blue are pre-kindergarten programs. The district had an idea of consolidating all pre-kindergarten classrooms onto one campus and incorporating it into the new Martin Middle School and creating a pre-kindergarten learning center, if you will. So those programs in blue identify the spaces that are required to have that as a functioning entity that serves all 3-year-old and 4-year-olds throughout the district here in East Providence for the next 5 to 15 years, identifying a population of about 229 students. The total for the Martin Middle School project you see highlighted in green, which is about 170,284 square feet. And that's the number that will be included in the stage 2 application. So on the next slide, you'll see some floor plans, and these have developed quite a bit since you saw them a few months ago. The team has been really involved in identifying and making sure the building is as consolidated and cost effective as possible. we've identified a number of options for the new Martin Middle School campus layout. We found the most cost-effective option is the one you see here tonight, which incorporates existing auditorium and support spaces, a performing arts area that currently exists at Martin, as well as the athletic center. And you see that in that dashed line wrapping around the dark red and purple zones to the left of the first floor diagram. That's existing spaces that you couldn't rebuild if you were to go into the program with a new project. So by preserving those, which are in very good shape to begin with, and lightly renovating them, you maintain those key community assets in that part of the district. So that really allowed us to save a tremendous amount of money. The new programs you see at the top, there's a horizontal bar. That's the new academic wing that's 3 stories high that services grades 6 through 8. And then at the far bottom, you see light blue classrooms, 2 stories stacked, which represents the 16 pre-kindergarten classrooms. The spaces connecting those two in red and yellow colors are the administrative support spaces so that the school can function as an independent middle school as well as an independent learning center for pre-K. And then it also contains community spaces such as the academic commons or student dining, as well as a multi-story library media center. If you go to the next slide, you'll see some early conceptual thoughts that we've included in our schematic design package, which identifies the feel of the new modern Martin Middle School. This is one of many options that we identified, and we're really looking forward to pushing this design further and having many more meetings and discussions with the building committee about materials, colors, as well as massing as we move the design forward further in stage 3. The next slide identifies the overall site plan of what would happen at the new Martin Middle School campus. The black dashed line where the text reads Martin Middle School are the programs that will remain that are currently existing. And you can see the new construction wrapping around that existing program with the academic core to the north and the pre-K programs to the south. One of the things we really wanted to study as part of the stage 2 application is really addressing that steep lawn at the front of the school that runs parallel with Brown Street. And as it slopes down steeply to the elevation where Martin currently is, if we're pretty thoughtful about where retaining walls can be placed there, we could activate that front lawn and really turn over usable space to the community and to the school department for additional recreation area, as well as outdoor learning classrooms. That's one of the priority goals we had for the site plan design, including a safe and secure campus by separating bus traffic from pre-K kids and having 2 independent pickup and drop-off zones, one to the north servicing the middle school program and one to the south servicing the pre-K program, so that those populations don't cross over and it maintains a safe and secure campus. The next slide identifies something that we believe is very critical when you identify costs for any school project, and it's really discusses phasing. So that next slide identifies 3 key phasing plans that we, let the slide catch up to that. That's okay. There it is. Yep, that one right there. It identifies an overall project schedule and identifies critical points that we identify in our schematic design set of where the contractor has to be at certain times of construction, dividing the school into 3 separate and distinct phases. Phase 1 on the far left in light blue identifies a dark blue area that is a new 3-story academic core. That's a critical first step in this process for the contractor, because he's actually building future swing space for the existing middle school to be torn down. Those kids that are waiting and watching that new 3-story academic core be constructed will be moving into that in approximately 18 months when construction starts. Then you see phase 2 in the middle, those diagrams in orange. That allows those students to occupy the 3-story academic core and vacate their existing classrooms at Martin, allowing the contractor to tear that section of the building down and lightly renovate the gymnasium and auditorium, as I mentioned earlier. It also requires the district to find temporary homes for the existing pre-K programs that are on the Martin campus. 4 to 5 classrooms in total will be found a home within the district and avoid the added cost of temporary modular construction. And then finally, phase 3 is identified to the far right, where the remaining site work and the terracing of the existing slope adjacent to Brown Street will be addressed. All these phases and the timing of these phases have cost implications, and those are included in the cost estimates that Sam has tonight. The next project I wanted to highlight quickly is the Waddington Elementary project. When we came on board back in January, we heard a lot of things that needed to be addressed at the Waddington Elementary School project. Our team of over 50 professionals, engineers, and architects toured all the schools in the district and created a priority list of needs, not only physical deficiencies, but also educational deficiencies. And similar patterns of what Martin has educationally as a deficiency is also happening at Waddington. In the 1970s edition, there's two-story classroom wing that has open classrooms on both floors, a very unsafe and acoustically unsound, has very similar challenges for delivering education as Martin Middle School does with those open classrooms. So priority number one is to address those. And on the next slide, you'll see how we separated these projects to create a cost-effective approach to addressing these issues. As I mentioned, there's two tracks here. Light blue is track one and the orange is track two. Two separate projects, two separate groups that can be done either simultaneously or separately, depending on funding and funding streams from RIDE that we've been discussing with them prior to submitting the application. Track one are what we consider mission critical items. Like I said, addressing those open classrooms, addressing the HVAC system, providing upgrades for that entire system in the 1950s portion, as well as the 1970 classroom, introducing dehumidification to address those high humidity levels that the school is experiencing. Also exterior window upgrades, roof upgrades, code upgrades for handicap accessibility and sprinkler compliance will also be part of the track one high priority mission critical items. It allows us to look at a handful of track two items that either could be delayed or work simultaneously with this schedule. On the second page, you'll see two critical components of the track two projects. They include reorganizing the main entry off Legion Way. Right now, the main entry is on the west side of the school. They create a safe entry there, but the district really wants to bring the main entry back to the original design of the 1954 building, having a presence off of Legion Way. In order to make that a safe and secure environment, we have to create a safe and secure entry vestibule, which the school does not have. It was something that really wasn't done back in the 50s when the school was built. Here you see in the lower left, introducing new curtain wall storefront system, as well as new entry doors. In the floor plan, you'll see that it creates a secured area that people can come into. The second set of doors remain locked. You have to be buzzed through that control point, similar to the high school design. And then beyond that point, it creates a safe and secure entry lobby with two additional doors that will be incorporated. It also allows renovations to the plan to bring administration, deans, and principals back to this area and have those offices overlooking that safe entry. As also another critical component of track two is the addition of a new gymnasium. This would occur at the end of the 1954 wing on the north side. It'd be a full-size gymnasium with bleachers on one side, as well as dedicated restrooms, a gym office, and support space. And finally, the last page of the Waddington School projects are outside site work, exterior site work, I should say, where enhancements to the failing stairs and exit plateau on the north side of the building, connecting that drop-off zone to the north would be enhanced, enhancing spalling concrete, decomposing concrete, as well as bituminous paving throughout the campus would be addressed, as well as site amenities, and more importantly, handicap accessible pathway from Legion Way to that new main entry lobby that I described earlier to the south will be part of the track two projects for Waddington Elementary School. And finally, I did want to highlight some outside of capital improvement projects, if you will. They could be brought into that for funding, but I just want to highlight these projects at Orlo Avenue Elementary School. On the next page, you'll see a floor plan that represents key components inside the building that will be addressed. There's two existing stairs that are not handicap accessible. One of them leads to an exit point. So we would be proposing to provide a wheelchair lift there, as well as the one to the bottom of the sheet to the gymnasium would also need a wheelchair lift for handicap accessibility. And to round out those handicap accessibility efficiencies, 4 additional restrooms would be upgraded to incorporate a handicap sink and stall. And this work has been ongoing at Orlo, but this is the balance of what's remaining to make the building fully handicap accessible, including exterior upgrades that you'll see on the next slide, which include a new main entry at the bottom. You'll see a new ramp and entry stairs hatched in a concrete pattern that's a tan tone and it's called out. So accessible railings, et cetera, would provide an accessible path from a dedicated restriped parking stall in the parking lot and added site amenities and vegetated buffer to the southeast corner of the campus would be included as part of the Orlo Avenue Elementary School project, and a handful of other things that we included in the capital improvements list as part of the stage 2 application. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Sam to go over the total project budget and schedule.
Thank you, Jim. So just for a little bit of a 101 or a refresher on how the stage 2 process works with the submittal. There are typically projects that are going to be outside of the bonded amount. So back in May, the council approved that 148 million total project budget. Knowing that, and similar to what happened at the last round when you did the 189, there are CIP or capital improvement projects that sit outside of that bonded amount. And those are projects that the district implements over a 5-year plan. You have to renew that CIP plan every 5 years. And the district has done, I think, a really good job over the last 5 of upgrading roofs, replacing windows, upgrading mechanical systems as needed. That was part of that previous round. So Jim is referencing some projects that, while not inside of the $148 million total cost, will be inside of the CIP as part of the stage 2. I think it's important just to kind of understand the divide too. Further to that point, when RIDE met with the building committee back in July, and they walked the school committee or the building committee walked RIDE through what the proposed improvements were for Waddington. RIDE really encouraged the district and the team to think a little bit more comprehensively about Waddington. We knew that that was going to come with additional costs that wasn't originally estimated when we presented that number back in May, which is why you now have these 2 tracks. So the project budget is laid out with basically 3 projects. The first is Martin Middle, which is your 3rd column from the left. The next one is Waddington Elementary School for track 1. And then the 3rd is Waddington Elementary School for track 2. So if we focus on the 2 first projects, Martin Middle and Waddington track 1, those all total up to the column on the left, which you'll see brings us in just shy of the 140 approved by the council. Went through that legislative process. The work to get to these numbers involved all the design process that we talked about earlier, and then a pretty exhaustive cost estimating step with AI3's third party. So they went through all the plans, reviewed quantities, did takeoffs, looked at market trends, latest historic data. Their team works extensively throughout southeastern New England, almost exclusively on K-12 projects. So we believe that they are a really good source of data. Also, they're a really good source of all the fluctuations that we've seen in the marketplace for the members of this council. So we had to build in those protections and those safeties to ensure that we were assuming some of the escalation that we've seen and also trying to project forward because there's time involved also. So those numbers make up your construction costs. That's where all the cost estimating work came into play. We include contingencies. Those are for things that unforeseen now, especially at the early 20 to 25% level. Architectural costs, OPM costs, engineering costs, and then a lot of the soft costs, similar to how we saw with the high school project, that the owner will incur during the process. Right now, all these are allowances because we don't know exactly where those are going, but those could include commissioning agents, third-party testing, utility back charges for new connections to the building, advertising costs, all these kind of categories. And then finally, furnitures, fixture, and equipment. You'll see that under the MMS column. That is tied to the total student body count of 702 that is proposed for that building between the middle school and the pre-K students. So again, these all add up to that just shy of the 148 million, and will be submitted accordingly. Track 2 will also be submitted. And RIDE has expressed that there are programs that are going to be rolling out over the next 6 to 12 months where you may be able to source some of these projects almost in alignment, to Jim's point, with track 1. Now, the district will need to go and apply for those dollars and see if they're eligible. But the great thing about that is, say, some of the more life safety components of the building proposing go into track 2, if we can find those sources now or in the near future, then you could just put out a design package for that, all that work, and then be able to still accomplish that while not exceeding the 148. And then again, the CIP would sit again outside of that as well, and really be able to touch every single school with some level of improvements, whether it's just base envelope work around windows and roof, or more sophisticated around access or other life safety protections to go in these buildings on a regular basis. Go to the next slide, please. So, and again, you'll see this in your full packet. We do outline all the sections that compose the entire stage 2. To Jim's point, it's about 1,500 pages, so we were not going to present every single page this evening. But these last sections, 5, 6, and 7, local support is the key final step. We've gone through all the discussions with this body, with the school committee, with the school building committee, the visioning sessions. The last steps are that community support and endorsement by the elected body. And then if we go to the next slide, I won't dwell on this because I think Jim did a really good job at outlining the schedule for Martin, but this gives a graphic representation of what we believe the schedule will be. Due to incentives that are expiring at the end of next year, we need to be under contract by December 31st of 2023 with both Martin and track 1 of Watt. So that means a lot of work needs to happen in the next 12 to 14 months in order to complete that work, get it out to bid, and actually be under contract. So, you know, there may be an extension of those. We don't know, but we are planning for the date that we know to be in writing today. And then that would kick in that construction schedule that Jim referenced back in his document. Waddington, I think, will be a little bit more fluid. We want to get it all designed in that same time frame. And then depending on the sources of funding, we could be coupling some of the track 1 and the track 2 in order to make that happen. I think the challenge with Waddington is doing work while you're occupied with students and teachers is a challenge. And how do we maybe swing out a smaller portion of students either into temporary, whether it's modular, or find a location that's, you know, close by or in other schools. Easier said than done. There's going to be a lot of working with the administration, with school leadership to determine how many students can need to move out based on a more efficient construction schedule, and then how many students really can be moved out based on the day-to-day functioning of the school and making sure that learning is not profoundly impacted by that disruption. Inherent challenges when you're renovating an existing building. You know, we had the luxury at the high school of building new next door and then moving everybody over and then taking the old one down. Here, we're going to have to navigate through a much more delicate process to figure out what is the right mix of disruption and impact to learning. So we don't claim to have all the answers yet in this proposal here, but we've certainly been thinking about it and trying to at least include some of those costs that we know are going to be there for that space. If we go to go 2 slides forward. So this represents all the sections that are, in the stage 2. As we mentioned, most of these have been taken care of. The finance teams at the city and the district are wrapping up their piece. Local support, section 7, we just referenced. So we're really kind of in this culmination mode of putting all these pieces together for that submittal next week. And we're here to answer any questions about the presentation or any of the information.
Mr. President, Sam, was mentioned, maybe Jim elaborated on it about the gymnasium at Waddington. So how does that work with funding? Is that something that RIDE would say is outside of reimbursables or similar to what we're looking at the high school or?
Yeah, right now, it is a reimbursable, at a certain size, it's a reimbursable item for RIDE. Based on the cutoff that we had of the 148, and that was a late addition, as I mentioned, that came after we set that cap of 148. So we worked with RIDE on how do we split out the total scope, because we looked at it comprehensively first and then had to try to dissect between the two tracks. I think that the gym is definitely going to be the one that we have to kind of figure out, is there a future funding source? Would you come back for another modified stage 2 at a later date in order to get that work? And then how would you fund it, or how would you fund your portion of it? So it is certainly reimbursable. I think it would be a smaller, there is a cutoff on the square footage. We're showing a larger square footage than is allowed. Just based on trying to achieve the program requirements. But I think that's a TBD as far as how you would figure out the source of funding. There's definitely more dollars available in some of the other items, like educational enhancements, fixing windows, fixing roofs, those kind of things seem to have better sources of funding that's coming out of RIDE.
So is that new gym being, go ahead.
Sure.
I'm sorry. As a district, we expect some money to be coming from RIDE. When Mr. Bradner mentioned other sources of income, there's what we call an equity grant, which is money that is left over from last year from schools that did not use it as part of their construction monies. And so East Providence is on the agenda to get some of that money as income this coming year. We don't know at this point. Is that correct, Craig? Just the amount we are going to get, but we are going to get some money. There is another grant coming in for furniture, fixture, and equipment for schools that are in the construction phase of a school. And if that came through, the monies that we have allocated for Martin's furniture, fixture, and equipment could be moved out of that category and moved into building the new gymnasium. So when we talk other sources of money, that's what we're looking at as well.
Council will recall when we went through the stage 2 approval for the high school, what we had was a stage 2 package at the time. We had a cost estimate that matched the available budget. RIDE is going to come back and they're going to make comments on the stage 2 package that the district will have to reconcile. Some of those comments will have to do with, as Sam mentioned, the amount that they're going to reimburse per square foot, et cetera. There were several budget trimming exercises that we had to do with the high school. I think people will remember, the lights, the outside lights were one thing, the turf in the fields outside. Those were things that we had moved into kind of the alternate bucket that we eventually were able to move back in because the project performed so well. There's going to be a lot of that going on here as well. It's just not, as big in scope of project.
There was discussion early on during the first meeting we had at the high school about reimbursable rates. It was between, can you give us that number, what it's between? And I know we lost.
The incentives can be up to 20%. However, your housing aid is down to 48.5. When we built the high school, it's 54.5, if you remember. You are down to 48.5%. So if you add 20%, which we got 20% added to the high school, and I feel that we will have the same added to the middle school in Waddington, you'll be up to 48.5. So 20% to that, you'll be up to reimbursable rate 68. 70.
And there was also some discussion also early on regarding energy efficient. And that's one of the incentives as well. And so what direction are we heading in when we talk about energy efficient for this building here? Whether it's through solar panels or the type of, heating units that we use, charging stations and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Very similar systems to the high school. The only nuance is probably focusing on air source heat pumps for Martin Middle as well as Waddington. There's a dehumidification component that we're investigating for Waddington Elementary. There's humidity control issues out there now. All of our projects, these would be no exception, are solar ready. So the roofs are designed to handle the additional load for future solar panels. We also incorporate electric charging stations on the site for a certain number of stalls to be determined later. We'll have those conversations with the district. We'll meet the minimum number required in Northeast CHIPS, which will be the compliance program that determines the energy efficiency of the building. We've also carried an energy modeler and a PV consultant as part of our design team. So they'll be doing extensive energy modeling through every stage of the project. In fact, we're also currently looking at life cycle cost items, which is included in the appendix that you see here on the screen. That's another check the box item. We're expecting that information to come back in our schematic designs in the next couple of days. So
So you said solar ready,
solar ready.
but no panels.
Panels are not included in the cost estimates at this time. But the building would be ready to receive those panels.
The high school solar ready as well.
High school roof
It is.
is designed for solar panels. That's correct.
So going back to your question, Mr. President, and Jim referenced the New England CHIP standard, right, which is sort of the lead standard for schools, right? So CHIPS sets the standards by which we achieve certain energy efficiency levels, right? And I mean, you can design a zero impact building. It's just going to cost a lot of money to get there. And once you get past designing in that 5% incentive, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to, build in a whole lot more stuff, right? Because you can't get more than 5% for the energy. So that's a balance, and figuring out exactly what we're going to chase versus what we're going to get back is, the cost benefit analysis.
Mr. President, the only other comment I'd make is really not a question, but what is making this very positive with the Martin project is the fact that 3 of the generally or usually most expensive areas we're keeping. It's a great hybrid model. The gymnasium is in wonderful shape now and is very large, larger than most or many high schools in the state. The auditorium is beautiful, cafeteria, maybe some minor enhancements as you've stated, but those are 3 large expensive areas that we're retaining, and we're going to fix the classroom area. So it's a nice hybrid, and I think that's a great way to go forward. Nothing else. So.
Any other further questions? Thank you.
Mr. President, I wonder, does the council have any appetite for moving up the vote on the stage 2 package?
Mine as well, while everyone's here.
While we're on it,
That's a motion. I would,
Do we need a motion to move it,
You wanna
Mike?
please?
No.
to a motion. Oh, any objections? Moving it up? No objections? Please proceed, Councilman Cahoon.
So with that said, I just want to get the language. 1 second.
Here's 11 number.
Before it was Mike. Let me see. So like to move to approve the move to approve the Martin Middle School and Waddington Stage 2 application submittal as requested by the East Providence School Department and as presented here tonight.
So we
Second.
currently have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon, seconded by Councilman Roderick. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
And Mr. President, if I may, I just want to say thank you to the ladies and gentlemen of the building committee who worked tirelessly to put the high school in place And we'll work tirelessly to complete the Martin and Waddington projects. I think you all know what this takes. Kudos to you for signing up to it again. I couldn't be more proud of you and the weekly work that you do. Thank you very much. Changing a life for tens of thousands of kids in East Providence.
Mr. President, I'd like to add to that, take this opportunity to thank a gentleman who's been very special to education in East Providence and who's here tonight with us and is supporting, I assume he's supporting with the smile. He was there the day that the Martin Middle School opened. He was one of their first administrators, became the principal, and has done so much for the system and a lot in East Providence. I thank you for being here today, former principal and administrator, Mr. Jack Resendes. Thank you for all you've done.
I'd like to thank the city council for really being very supportive city council on both the bond issues, the high school and this one. Without your support, we couldn't have done it either. So it was a group effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next would be proclamations and presentations. The next one is green energy net metering update.
I apologize for the wait. I know you.
Oh, no
vacation
problem.
this
No
week, so-
problem. I didn't send slides in advance, but I think that they'll be helpful. As long as there's a USB port. I'm Hannah Marini. I'm the Director of Business Development at Green Development. Most of you may be familiar with us. We've been in front of you a few times over the past 4 years or so. We are a renewable energy developer, builder, and owner operator based in Cranston, Rhode Island. We have at this point about 135 megawatts of wind and solar combined in the state. And we develop those projects and then we sell the power to cities and towns, universities, nonprofits, groups that are allowed to benefit from the virtual net metering program in Rhode Island. Most of our projects sell power through that program. And the way it works is it's a savings program to cities and towns for the most part. The credit is set a certain value and then you keep a certain percentage of what it is of the credit as a savings. So it's essentially just a savings program. Most municipalities in the state have entered into the program at this point in time, and most are saving. The city of East Providence has been very thorough in their exploration of this program. We actually, a couple of years ago during COVID, so normally when there's a contract to purchase net metering credits, it's a set volume for a set amount of time. But a few years ago during COVID, we actually had certain entities that were not using when things were shut down. We have gyms, for example, and they were not open for a very long time and their usage went down. So we were able to actually do kind of a one-time deal and reduce their usage and give the city of East Providence a short-term 12-month contract for remote net metering credits. It went very well. It was a reduced amount. So you guys, the city uses quite a lot of electricity. We've done a bill analysis on all of your accounts. We did it separately, the city, the schools, and housing. But the city alone uses about 8 million kilowatt hours a year. So we were through this kind of trial program, I'll call it. It was a 1-year contract at a reduced savings rate, only 25% savings rate. And it was only about 1 million kilowatt hours. It works. The city saved money and the city will save a lot more money entering into a long-term contract because the discount rate is higher and the volume of credits is higher. Sorry, I didn't send you these before. Oh. I'm sorry. should have at least, I was wondering, I thought that was very forward thinking of them to PDF it in advance, but that's probably no better than I
You're doing a good job if you want to continue.
do. Oh, I have nice pictures in there, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So I'm here today just to give an update on the program. So since 2018, we actually bid on both RFPs. The city had a consultant. You also worked with the state energy office. And through really that next 12 months or so, I think it got awarded like mid to late 2018. We presented so the RFP went out. You're magic. You did it. Wow. So throughout the next year or so, we presented, so the RFP is for 3 entities, for the city, the schools, and East Providence Housing Authority. But you're 3 different entities with 3 different contracts, 3 different decision-making boards. So we actually presented to all 3 of the entities over the next 12 months or so. And we, the director of the housing authority, very sadly, passed away during the process, and COVID happened, and there was a lot of questions going on about the new schools being built, and for a whole variety of reasons, things did slow down. But during that period of time, because of COVID, we were able to offer the city the trial 12-month savings. And that was really the only example I could think of where we did that. If you're able to kind of click ahead, I actually do have a table in here. Keep going. This stuff I already kind of said. So this is the last one was the 12-month program. So about 1/6 of the volume of credits, and you paid more than you will in the long-term program, and you still saved $40,000 in 12 months. So it worked. We did talk to the finance office as well, and there were no issues or anything there and with the process. So we were confident that the long-term program will work even better for you. So originally what we proposed is a 28% discount rate for the city of East Providence, a discount from the net metering credit rate. So if you're only using 6 million kilowatt hours a year, which we think you can probably use more than that, you'll be saving $290,000 a year. And that's at today's rates. So remember, they're going up a lot in October. So if the city, schools, and housing all sign up, because the original RFP was for a higher volume, then your savings rate will actually go up to 31%. So that'll give you an extra $30,000 a year in savings. Keep going. So actually you can skip through these. It's the same exact tables, but for the schools and for housing. We did have, so the housing authority has already voted to move forward with us. We're just negotiating. So HUD, the difference there is that HUD has to approve any contract that they signed. We're working with them. We don't anticipate issues. We've been able to answer all their questions, and this will be our 4th public housing authority that we've worked with. So we're familiar with the HUD process too. That's going great. The schools, we have begun to analyze their electric bills. We just need a few more from them, and then we're hoping to get on a meeting with the school committee relatively soon. We did have a meeting with the superintendent over the summer, and she seemed very positive about this program, the savings program. Bless you. And we have talked to them extensively about how to make sure with the new schools that we're not ever in a position where we're selling them more credits they can use. So we would talk about reducing their consumption to a much lower level, make sure that these solar ready buildings can take taken advantage of, or figure out a way that they could lease the roofs out to a company to pay. So either way, we're taking all this into consideration when working with the other entities. So the second part of this is we've amended our proposal slightly to offer a solar canopy project at the East Providence Police Station. And we've done a shade analysis on the entire property, including we heard discussions about a potential, in the future, potentially a second roof on the police station at some point down the line. We also accounted for shading from the tower. But we know that the police department is purchasing some electric vehicles. And they, not only would they be in need of some electric chargers, but also they are large investments that would really benefit from covered parking at the site. So we've actually amended our offer to offer a lease to the city for this additional project. And the reason that this is relevant here is that in lieu of paying the city lease payments for this project, we would actually offer an increased savings rate on the net metering contract. So if you go to the next one, and we would offer that increase, you go ahead a little more, I put that in the wrong spot. So if the solar canopy project goes through also, we'd be able to increase, so the city would go from 28% to 33% if all three entities sign up. And if we are able to build a carport for you there. And we're estimating your 25-year savings conservatively at almost $10 million through this program. So we have been working with, so the city brought on a few years ago, Christian Capizzo to help negotiate the contracts. So he has reviewed he's reviewing the red line of the net metering contract agreement. And we've also sent him a sample solar lease for the police station parking lot as well. And the net metering contract agreement was negotiated heavily by the same people a few years ago, when at the same time that the 1-year contract was approved by the city. So we don't anticipate it being a big lift to get to a final form at this point in time. Can you go back one? So I just wanted to update you too on the project that we're proposing. So this is a remote net metering program, which means it doesn't even have to be in East Providence, let alone on a property that you own. It could be anywhere in the state of Rhode Island. So right now we are projecting that the city will get these savings from a project that we're building in Tiverton. It's already under construction. We have all of our permits. We have our utility contracts, which take a very long time to get these days, but we have everything in place, and we believe that it will be online probably late summer next year. And the only reason that it would take that long is because things like wire and transformers and specific electric equipment are very slow to get these days. But they've been ordered. They've been delayed a couple of times. So those are things that are within the not National Grid anymore, Rhode Island Energy's wheelhouse to order. Everything's been paid. So that's really the only delay, but it will be online. You can go ahead again. You can go through these two. This is the same thing I did for school and housing. So this is some images of the canopy. This is the same technology. It's high up, but it offers sun protection, and it offers it helps with snow cleanup. Yep. So yes, there are. Can you go back a couple more to remember like the overview I did of with that one. So we actually, what we realized when we did a shade analysis, adding a second potential floor to the police station, we realized that it would actually shade out the first row of panels. So but we understand that there's a benefit of covered parking as well. So the back two are going to be have solar panels on them, but the front section there closest to the police station will actually just be covered parking, and there won't be solar on it.
Would that be a good location for it, considering the shade analysis appears that there's more shade in that area than you would anticipate or would expect to have?
It is a good location for it because it's very close to interconnection. And there's not a lot of, so the biggest thing that we run into right now with developing projects is availability on the power lines to receive these types of projects. So certain parts of the state have been that have a lot more kind of open space and become really saturated. This is a great spot for small projects because we don't anticipate there being a long delay. Yes, this is where the state wants to see these projects. They want to see projects in the built environment now, on parking lots, landfills. You know, you guys have a great example of one over on Forbes Street. They don't want to see them anymore. They don't want to see them anymore in green spaces. So this is a great location. And the other reason that it's great too is that just those two back pieces where we have the solar is the right size for the energy program that we would put it into. So it's a good spot. There would only be shading on the very first section, which is why we're just not going to put solar panels on that one. So I wanted to just come and give an update while we're talking while the lawyers are negotiating the final contracts, and see if there were any other questions. If I left anything out, please let me know.
I have a question, Mr. President, and this might be a little bit outside of your reason for being here tonight, but we know that our high school is solar ready. And we may do that if we go through with the Martin, Waddington, to be solar ready. Police station, we're talking about doing something. Why wouldn't we, I don't understand totally how solar works. I understand how it works. I don't understand why we don't see it everywhere if it is so good. You know, I've talked to some homeowners who have it and they love it. And I know someone recently bought a home who has it and they're paying more in rental fees to a solar company and they're not getting any residuals. It's costing them more than what they had before and they just paid the regular electric bill. So as an example, why with our high school, let's just say hypothetically, no shade, massive roof, perfect solar. Why wouldn't we go on and put panels up there? Why are we waiting? I know you weren't involved in that, or maybe, I don't think you were.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not. So I can't answer that specifically, but what I would say is that you can do both and there's no harm in doing both. So,
So we're not behind the 8 ball by being solar ready. It's not gonna
No.
cost us more to add panels at some point.
no, it won't. Well, no, I mean, you could even get, so you're talking, your neighbors, for example, sounds like the residential deals are never quite as good. I actually have it on my roof too. But so I would answer the question by saying, no, you're not behind the 8 ball. There's plenty of companies who will pay the school committee or however it works. They will pay to lease your roof. So it doesn't even necessarily have to go in to offset what you use in the school. So there's other ways to do it. You shouldn't have to spend any money on that. But there's no risk in this for you. It's just a savings program that we're talking about here today. And the project's already being built. And projects that are on the ground, we can 100% control the efficiency. Obviously,
We all
can't control
share.
if it's cloudy, but we can control the orientation of the panels. We know it's without shade, we maintain it. So it's already being built. So any project that you're talking about starting from scratch, this alone for the solar canopies, we're estimating from when you sign the lease, we're estimating 12 to 18 months. This project I'm talking about now is going to be ready. It'll be ready early summer and you can offset everything. So from the time you start talking, by the time you start, we start the project, you sign the documents, it's going to be at least a year and a half.
And Hannah hit on the point as to why they're not there now. And yes, we could have purchased them through the project budget if we put them in the project scope. They're expensive. Why do that, right? Would mean something else would have to come out because the budget is what the budget is. When you can go through a program and do the analysis, just like Hannah just presented, perhaps the school department might find that it's more cost advantageous to just lease the roof, just do a straight up lease. Maybe they might find something like a proposed deal with the solar canopy to be better, right? Swapping for, you know, net metering kind of, that would be up to the school department to negotiate and figure out. And that would be separate and a part of anything that we're talking.
The
just
fact
had-
that they're solar ready is
Good.
great because that means that you will have options available to you. Whereas if you didn't take those steps to make sure it's solar ready, you have to get structural engineers involved and make sure it can handle it, but you're past that already, so.
And just as a reminder, this is a presentation only tonight. It's not on for a vote.
So Hannah, hi, thank you for coming and bringing us an update. So this project, I think, it's over 4 years.
Yes.
Actually, if we really think about the timeline, and I was always in favor of bringing this to the city and anything green. I do have some questions just really more for the viewers that are watching, and it relates to the canopy. So just so if you could explain to the viewers, just like all of the other assets that you own, this would also be owned assets by Green Energy. They would maintain all of it. If there was anything that was to happen, it's all falls back. None of it is the responsibility or at cost for the city.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Okay.
We intend to own and operate this for the life of the project. And so the remote net metering program is interesting because instead, if you had solar panels on your roof, it's a lot easier to say, hey, look at us. We're producing renewable energy. When it's in Tiverton, there's not that visual connection. Right? So most, we do enter into public-private partnerships with most of the large renewable energy purchasers that we work with. So that's what we would consider this project in particular. We would own and operate it. You would get the benefit of the covered parking for all the police cruisers.
How long would it take once the contracts have been signed and agreed upon for those canopies to go up?
So we
Best case scenario, we won't hold it to it.
So we met with the utility company about a week ago, and they seem to think that small projects like this that are in, like I was talking about, in the built environment will be very quick to approve. Because they're brand new, we haven't worked through this yet, so we're really very optimistic that will be true. So if this does not have to go through a detailed study like some of our other projects, I'm saying 12 to 18 months, but it could be much closer to 12 months. I'd rather say 12 to 18 and beat that rather than say 12 and be a little bit later than that. So we think it would be about a year. If we get stuck in a detailed study, which there's really no reason that we would need to, but if they make us go through one, it would delay. This is small enough that it's kind of under the threshold for what they require. And the other thing that we are this, because it is city-owned property, we are hoping that the permitting process for something, and it's very far off the road, that the permitting process would be relatively streamlined as well.
This would come live though, potentially before the Tiverton asset? Or
I don't
around the
think
same time?
so. Probably it could be around the same time. Could be around the same time. That project is under construction, but really we're going to be built and waiting for electrical equipment there. So, yeah, it could end up being the same time.
Any other further questions?
Just to be clear, that canopy would be benefiting the police department building.
So we're gonna own the solar and we'll put it into a renewable energy program with the utility company. So the benefits are the covered parking for the police vehicles. And the increase instead of a lease payment, we're gonna increase by an additional 2% the city, schools, and housing net savings rate from the net metering program. That's the other benefit of it.
So basically, you're just asking for a place to put your solar panel, right?
That's
not-
one of the benefits.
The
yes,
energy that's being created by those solar panels not gonna go to benefit.
Right.
The city of East Providence is gonna go to benefit, other communities and
Yes, this will get sold. Our plan is to sell this right to the utility. You also won't have, if we size your contract, right, for the net metering credits, the city won't have an appetite for additional solar through this program. Because you'll be getting, I think we sized it to like 80 or 85% of your total electric consumption.
so at the end of the 25 year lease, what happens to that structure?
We're 100% responsible for removing it. And if the city likes the covered parking there, it's steel. So if the city likes the covered parking there, that can be discussed at the time, but we are 100% responsible for removing the structures.
So, thank you, Councilman, for those questions. Just so everyone knows, we are in the process of negotiating the lease, and some of these questions have come up that we're dealing with. So you'll see the final proposed lease. We'll need city council approval, so there'll be no surprises. You'll see the full lease once both sides can agree on a framework for it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Hannah.
Moving right along.
The next item is communications. Kathy Houlihan could not be present tonight. She will ask to be placed on communications at another time. Next would be public comment. We have Jen Tierney from the East Providence Tree Commission.
Hello, I'm here as Vice Chair of the East Providence Tree Commission. In August, we had sent you our budget request, and this is just to review quickly what we had asked for and why. And I also sent you an email today with the budget request and some of the major points. I sent it to all of you, so you can read it later. So the East Providence public, the mayor, and the city council have recognized the value of our urban forest. Just as a review, street trees and the urban forest improve city life through their effects on the local economy, environment, human health, and spaces. This has been proven definitively through many studies. It also attracts new residents and businesses to social spaces in our community through their higher attractiveness. East Providence is the third hottest city in Rhode Island, precisely due to its lack of tree cover. We cut down a lot of trees. And so now we have heat islands. So every time you cut down a big tract of trees, you create heat islands. This has happened most recently in Riverside. Urban heat islands are urban areas with higher temperatures compared to similar areas with vegetation. The summer was very hot, and the negative effects of the summer heat are likely to increase every summer. Urban forests play a pivotal role in cooling communities and mitigating the effects of climate change. Shade trees, our street trees, are vastly improve public spaces, particularly for people with asthma. Trees improve air quality by capturing pollution on roof surfaces. So while the benefits of the urban forest are really clear, healthy urban forest requires planning, constant planning, and management by a professional staff. Fortunately, in 2012, the city council had mandated that there would be this specific professional position, a city forester. The East Providence Tree Commission is asking for a reinstatement of position of the city forester. We had a forester, but the position has not been filled for a decade. So if you would look at the city's sidewalk and street ordinance, we included the chapter, establishes the position and duties summarized as city forester shall plan, direct, regulate, and control the protection, maintenance, removal, and planting of all trees growing on or hereafter on the streets, parks, public places, and other tree protection zones of the city. On June 20th, the Tree Commission met with Daniel Borges, head of DPW, and Tony Vieira, Head of Parks. We discussed the challenges that the city face in regards to city tree management and the advantages of a professional forester, and they were fully supportive of this, of reinstating this position. It is important to note that the city forester position is very different from the part-time tree warden, who is currently paid a stipend to review requests for pruning or removal of trees. It's also very different from the arborist, which is part of the crew that prunes the trees. These positions are important, but they're not proactive in building an urban forestry program or coping with the many challenges facing our trees. So we expect the responsibilities of the city forester to include developing overarching policy for the improvement and management of our city's urban forest, developing and implementing a strategic approach to the equitable urban forest initiatives across all sectors of the city, formulating and carrying out plans for planting, maintenance, and removal of street trees using best management practices. This is really important. We don't have that right now. Identifying priority planting areas and assisting neighborhoods in choosing sites, conducting field surveys to inspect trees and other plant material to determine insect and disease damage that's going to increase, particularly as we have more droughts, and develop treatment plans, as well as assessing the mature trees that we have for the condition and maintaining database of city trees. There we have we have an updated tree inventory, but it's already becoming less updated because we need city forester. Reviewing development plans with other departments for conformance to ordinances and best practices in urban forestry, enforcing the municipal code as it relates to trees, and providing professional horticultural and arboricultural advice to citizens, city personnel, elected officials, city council, on all projects. In conclusion, we strongly recommend the employment of a qualified city forester. We are long overdue it. We had it before, particularly as we started to plant more trees, and the public is fully supportive of planting these trees. The East Providence Tree Commission is continuing to move forward with tree planting events. There's one that's going to happen later in September at Olo Avenue, which is a major heat island. Those kids have absolutely no shade at all, except for the building itself. So we will be moving forward, and you really need the professional staff. Right now, the city has asked, and Dr. Carol Auer, who is the commissioner, is more than happy to continue to volunteer her services, for expertise. But you want someone who is working in the Parks Department in DPW, because Tony Vieira told us quite clearly that he does not have the capacity for this. So anyway, any questions? We had presented this to you before. This is the second time that we've done this budget request. It's in addition to the 25,000, which is the minimum that the city needs to maintain its Tree City USA. That was part of the capital budgets. So this is the second time that we've asked for this, and hopefully what we've learned this summer is that we need tree shade more than ever.
So that's a good question. The couple of budget seasons ago, we budgeted to have trees planted along Bullock's Point.
Mhm.
You know, whatever happened to that project?
Yes, well, I mean, the issue, of course, that we know with Bullocks Avenue is that it is a state road. So that complicates it. It's sort of, we have to then work with the state. However, the city has moved ahead for its part, and it recently worked with a former city forester from Providence, because Providence has a city forester. I think Newport has a city forester. There are several cities across Rhode Island that have city foresters. And so this retired city forester went to each of the areas that Dr. Carol Auer had identified, and then went into further detail. So there is some progress, but the state DOT is out of is out of the city's hands.
So where I left it last, in communications that I had with the state, they were on board as long as we planted the trees and bought the trees ourselves as a city. It was
Well,
just a matter of permitting,
well, that would be
which they
great.
were on board with that.
I mean,
And I repeatedly asked these questions of the
I
planning director, and I've been stonewalled, but
Well, this summer, I do know that the city, did make progress on it. And the East Providence, the Tree Commission is on top of it as well. So maybe we'll hold another meeting about it and give you an update on that.
that budget
As we get
actually.
information, we do have a city
I appreciate that.
liaison.
That budget actually went to planting, was it 3 or 4 trees at the Riverside Library?
Riverside Library, well, those were,
The arrested money, I don't know where the trees went, but.
Yeah.
Phillips Point.
yeah. Well, we're moving, I know that the city, made some serious progress on that. So we're very hopeful.
Now, at one point, there was a, Jen, there was a discussion of what, because when planning for, to present that to the council, there was, questions of what was a salary. Was that, were we able to, determine what
We-
average salary would have been? for that?
Yeah, we did do some research on it. And so there was an industry survey on urban forestry in 2020 that showed an average entry-level salary to be 36,494. With the next non-supervisory level at 45,000. Another survey showed entry-level positions between 25 and 55,000. We could, it would seem that that we could compare it. I mean, if, usually what I think what happens is that the city then starts to do, define it, with comparable, I know that it's been mentioned that Chicopee, Massachusetts, which has a city forester, is a comparable size to us. So we could compare and see, but those numbers are certainly easy to come by, but these are the numbers that we have done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item, please.
Next item, council members. First is Bold Point concerts and complaints from Providence residents. Councilman Cahoon for discussion.
We'll go through this quickly. I think we also saw a number of emails from Councilman John Gonzalez from Providence, specifically forwarding us complaints, concerns from Providence residents on Fox Point East Side pertaining to the last concert that took place at Bold Point. They were referencing loud noise going on well into the night, well past 11 o'clock, et cetera. So they were asking us what could be done about that. Because when we raised these same concerns to Providence about the music kind of coming over the water, Councilman Gonzalez was the only council person from Providence to actually respond and kind of get involved. So I thought we owed it at least to him to discuss it. Now, I understand that the concert series at Bold Point are coming to an end. There won't be many more, or if there are any more scheduled, I don't even know if there are any more scheduled this year at that location. And in the future, they will kind of be moving down the river a little bit. But with that said, as we're discussing the potential for a more permanent type of facility, potentially go on East Providence land, I think we need to consider the noise impact, whether it's acoustical design or the way that the stage is pointed or speakers are pointed, the fact that that does carry across the water. And we should think about the time limits on, concerts, musical performances, et cetera. So we're not disturbing our neighbors over there.
So, Councilman, I had the opportunity to speak to Melissa Martin about this as well, based on the emails that were sent out. However, I would say that there was a complaint that was issued because ordinarily our concerts are shut down by 10 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. There was a special permit for 11 p.m., one of those that the individual was complaining about. He was saying, it's 11 o'clock in the evening. So there was a special permit for that particular one. She's been in touch with not only the councilman, but some of those the individuals as well who were complaining about it. Not all of them, but some of them. She's been in touch with and she's been talking to them. My understanding going forward, what's going to happen with this venue is I think we have a couple more venues left for this year. Next year is going to be shut down entirely. So everybody knows. So over on the other side of the bridge, those people won't be complaining next year as well because it will be shut down, and it's entirely why they build out the actual venue for Live Nation. And the acoustical will be pointed in the opposite direction, facing out to the water and not as it appears this evening, as it appears right now, where it's pointing directly over the water, over India Point Park and throughout the neighborhoods as well. So yes, there is an issue with some of the residents, a lot of the residents over there. This has been an ongoing problem for many years since the beginning of it, but my understanding is concert venues will be shut down all of next year. We won't be generating any funding or any income for that as well during next year, and they'll have a tent similar to what they have out in Boston. That will reduce, hopefully that will reduce that sound traveling across the river and reduce the amount of noise that's going over to India Point Park and those residents who reside on the other side of the bridge.
Right, yeah, and that's all great, and I'm glad that they're focused on those things, and that'll provide us with something to get back to the councilman in Providence with, and he can share that with his residents.
I think he's aware of that.
Oh, okay.
I
Great.
think
So
he is.
they've spoken.
From my understanding, yes, she's been in touch with him. She's been in touch with the residents out there as well.
So I'll follow up just to make sure, and then, okay, thank you very much.
Just curious, who approves that, special use permit to go till 11?
I'm not sure. That's done internally here, so.
Yeah.
Would that be? No, it wouldn't be us anyway. Right?
Wasn't the city.
Wouldn't the city be the ones issuing any type of permit?
That's why I'm asking, because I don't remember that either. I remember these little block parties throughout the neighborhood. I don't recall that coming to us for an extension. In our.
Yeah, and there may not have been one.
Second, please. In our ordinance, I believe, is it 10 o'clock citywide noise ordinance? Or was it 11 o'clock?
I think it's 10 o'clock if I'm not mistaken. On the weekend, it could be a little later, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And it. Thursday evenings, I think it's 10 PM, and it might be 11 PM on the weekends.
Yeah, it looks like 10:51, any loud noise after 11 PM on Friday and Saturday, 10 PM on Sunday through Thursday.
Yeah.
I can't remember the night of that event. I thought it was a weeknight. I don't think it was a Friday or Saturday, but I could go back and check.
I think it was a Sunday because the emails were coming over early, 2 o'clock Monday morning.
Yeah.
Or Sunday night into Monday. People were complaining that they were trying to sleep and they couldn't go to sleep because the noise persisted and they were going to bed early. So it happened on a Sunday night.
It's a two-way problem because, and I think we're alleviating this as they're moving the venue, going as the president said, downriver. So, and they're gonna move the stage a little bit and maybe they can lower the decibels. The sound does get kind of loud. I went to one concert this year. Enjoyed it, but it was loud. But we're also getting the problem from Providence to East Providence. I don't want our constituents to think we're ignoring that. And it's different because it's not concerts per se, it's individuals in Providence sitting in cars and vans and trucks with boom boxes pointed, and we hear it all over the city till 2 or 3 in the morning. Never mind 10 or 11 at night. So, and Councilman John Carls has been good about addressing that. I've talked with him. I met with him in India Point. We talked about it, and they are trying, he's trying to do what he can do. Providence Police, it said, has more things to worry about at 2 in the morning on a Friday or Saturday than, I won't say kids, but whoever's playing the boom boxes. So it's a problem. It seems to be a little better. I hear it in the outskirts of Kent Heights where I live, and I haven't heard it too much recently. Yeah, it's been pretty good, so I think they're helping. So it's a two-way street. We are neighbors. It is the smallest state in the country. I'm sure we can work together on this problem, and it looks like we're getting there. Thank you for bringing that up.
Next item, please.
Next item under council members is enforcement of the short-term rental and illegal motorized vehicles / mini dirt bikes. Councilman Morato and Councilwoman Souza discussion.
I just put that back on the docket. Councilwoman Susan was here last time, and we already addressed the short-term rental with a letter from Dylan, talked to the zoning department at Pimental. Right now, there's no need to change that short-term rental. The ordinance is working just fine, just catching up to, the new, what do you call it? Language that's in there, and they finally starting to utilize that. But as far as the motor bikes, I think that's still an issue, but we really need to have a discussion with the police chief as to how he is going to try to fix this, because I see them going by my house constantly, four wheelers and other unregistered vehicles. So I don't know if you want to put this back on the agenda
Yep.
and ask the police chief to be here officially through the proper forms and format. So that way we make sure that he's here to address some of these issues. It's up to you, because at this point, it's been on the docket 3 or 4 times now.
Yep. So, yes, so Madam Deputy Clerk, if we could put this on the agenda again.
Mhm.
Request that the police chief or a designee come and speak on this with some results as to, how many that they've actually seized or encountered, if they are patrolling it, what they're doing for enforcement. So if we could let them know that we're looking to speak with them, this will be the 3rd attempt to do so.
Would you like me to remove short-term rental?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item, please.
Next item, public hearings, ordinance for second passage for discussion and possible vote. First is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Summary is section 18-307, no parking on Comac Avenue. The sponsor is Councilman Cahoon.
We discussed this little plot last time. It's basically a stretch of curb on Comac Avenue where it's right between 2 driveways. It's a small stretch of curb. It's difficult for one resident to come out of their driveway, take a right when there's a car parked there. There is plenty of parking up and down the street. There's plenty of driveway parking on the street. And there was an issue also with the resident not being able to put out his trash cans. Needs to put them in that particular spot because he's got a tree in the front yard. And if he puts them under the tree, they get left because they can't get picked up. So second passage, passed it for the first passage last time.
Hey, I'm just curious, Councilman, is there parking allowed on both sides of that street or just one side?
There's parking on both sides of the street. There is not currently a no parking sign anywhere on that street. No, that's really working well now. Holy smokes, sorry. Wasn't working at all before.
At the pleasure of the council, this is a public hearing. Any other questions from the council? Again, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. I'll mention it one more time and then I'll close public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. If not, public hearing is now closed. Councilman, would you
Move to
need a
approve.
motion? We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon for approval. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
A second on a motion by Councilwoman Souza. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Council President Brito.
Aye. Next ordinance, please.
Next ordinance is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Summary is section 18-24, Providence Avenue southbound from Beacon Park Drive to Sunset Ave. One-way street during the hours of 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on school days. Sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Thank you. This also is in line with, this is second passage, second public hearing with, just changing, reflecting the new times of schools throughout the city. This was, one of those areas. It was
A
just,
question, Councilman Rod.
yes,
Is that for the old Oldham School?
that's where the location is. Yes. So I think it's more in line with the removal. I'm looking for that word here. I don't see remove, but there's no longer a school there.
Right.
So I think this was tossed in with all of the, some of the schools have different hours and.
So that's for the removal. I thought I saw that last time.
Right, last time it was about removal. I don't see the word here today. I didn't get a chance. I was coming by City Hall today to get that clarified and I didn't get here. But I don't know if we can add that word. Also, I can ask, Director Borges, is that what situation?
Wait a minute, it was, so we voted on it for first passage
Yes.
last meeting, and then it was advertised, right?
Yes, the full ordinance, if you read it, at the end of it, it says is amended by deleting therefrom the following.
Right, okay,
So that one comes out.
Yes, correct.
No, I saw it somewhere.
right. That was the public hearing.
Okay. At the pleasure of the council, anyone else have any questions? If not, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach your podium. I'll mention it one more time. Anyone is wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. If not, public hearing is now closed at this point in time. Councilman, would you like to proceed?
I'd move, approval.
On the floor by Councilman Rodrick. For approval, would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Have a second by Councilman Cahoon. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next ordinance, please.
Next ordinance is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Summary is section 18-269, stop sign on Allen Avenue westbound traffic at Smith Street. Sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Also up for a second passage. Director Borges, could you clarify it again? I don't have I just have the summary. I don't have the full language. I know we fully discussed it and approved it on first passage.
Yeah, so this is an issue with a resident who
Right.
consistently has vehicles driving along their property. So I'm proposing we put in a stop sign at the corner of this intersection in order to help alleviate that, force vehicles around the stop sign.
As I recall, you've been out there and you agree that this is,
Yeah, it's a T intersection. It's
Right.
the intersection doesn't warrant a stop sign.
Well, just a question. I know you have other things to do, but you know, timeframe.
Yeah, we'll dig safe it. That typically takes, 2 to 3 days to clear. We'll put the sign up immediately after that. So
The repairing that corner.
we should probably have that all done by the end of the week,
Great.
end of next week.
Thank you.
At the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions?
None.
None. This ordinance is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach your podium. I'll repeat this for the second and final time. Anyone, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach your podium. If not, public hearing is now closed. Councilman,
I move approval as read.
Second.
we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Rodrick to approve as read, seconded by Councilman Morado. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next item, please.
Would you like me to read that whole summary?
Sorry?
Would you like me to read the whole summary?
No.
No, okay. Ordinance is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. It's changing the one-way hours during school times.
And once again, this reflected, the fact that several of the signs at all of the schools they've been up quite a few years. Some of them were hard to read and some of them needed some new times put up. So this is not adding anything new. This is, getting these signs. I think that, Director Borges has already, been out there and inspected them all and they're ready to go. If not, already several of them have been replaced. So it's basically, lining up the signs with the correct times for the schools that it applies to. And in some cases, for instance, we had a complaint from someone around Silver Spring saying there were no signs, but they were there. I went out and they were just hard to read. So it's a matter of, replacing things like that.
So I just have a question, and maybe the director would be better to answer it. So does this also include all schools within the city? Because, on Grove Avenue, we have the Montessori, which previously was a city-owned property that I believe we still lease. I don't think that they've purchased it, but that gets very congested. And there's a traffic issue during school hours for the students. That wasn't a consideration in putting a.
This just includes all the schools that, we have designated one-ways. So what we've done is just created a uniformity for school hours. A lot of the schools were all different. They had been changed. They didn't meet the ordinance. So it's more of just a housekeeping item just to bring the ordinance up to date.
So adding a section that doesn't have it would be just going through the steps of doing the two ordinances, doing the two passages.
I'm not sure I follow.
Well,
Sorry.
the Grove Avenue, I can't imagine that's been a school there since before I was a child, was born, because I went to school there. So I can't imagine that them never having had a sign placed there.
Yeah, is that designated a one-way?
Yeah, you wouldn't make that a one-way, right?
Well, no. I wouldn't say all the areas is for the traffic flow, right? That's why you're designating it a one-way. The street otherwise is not a one-way.
No, these are just to address streets that are designated one-ways during school hours. So in the morning and in the afternoon during drop off and pickup. So I'm just simply changing the time so that all the schools throughout the city that are designated one-ways during that time read all the same.
So that any school in the city that is not already on this list has not been designated during school hours a one-way.
Correct. Yeah, it wouldn't be a
No.
one-way. Yep.
Thank you. And I ask that only because I know signs go missing for decades and that school was inactive probably for a good 15 years. So who knows what a sign could have gone. So I just didn't want to miss anything. Thank you.
Any other further questions from the council?
I just want to clear up because I know there was some confusion from the public that the city was adding one-ways in these locations. The city is not adding one-ways in any of these locations. The city is changing the times during which the one-ways are active to marry up with the school.
This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. I'll announce it a second and final time. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. Public hearing is now closed. Councilman,
Move approval as read.
And I'll second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Thank you. That concludes ordinances for this evening.
Next item is continued business, budget session review of the administration's fiscal year 23 proposed budget. We will start with city operations, the EEOC and affirmative action.
Yeah, I just ask you one quick question before you start, Elmer.
Sir.
So we just got the amended budget, right, to reflect the change in housing aid from the last budget that the mayor proposed. You're not aware of any changes in your budget from the one we got a couple weeks ago to the new one, are you?
No, sir.
Just, I'm asking because all my notes are in this one, so. I'm not even looking at the new one. Okay. So, thank you, Mike.
Ina?
Good evening. Council, I just wanted to update the council on a few things that's been happening through my office. I wanted to take a moment to update the council on the newly formed LGBTQ advisory council this past spring. It's a council made up of, I want to say 12 to 15 members, strong members. The LGBTQ advisory council was pleased to hold their city's first ever Pride Parade this past June. I know there were some members of the city council that were attended this first parade. So thank you on behalf of the advisory council. It was a huge success with the little time that the council had to plan. We had probably close to 100 people out there on a very, very hot June day, but it was a huge success, and the advisory council looks forward to making it bigger and better next year. Some of the potential events that the council wants to organize this fall is to come up with some ideas to foster awareness of visibility, diversity, equality, equity, inclusion, and belonging within the city systems in terms of policies, procedures, and practices. In the same breath, include the school system as part of the school system as well. Rest assured, we do have some policies and procedures that protect that class within the affirmative action plan, and it has been for decades now. Some of the community events is they like to hold some symposiums, let's say here within the council chambers, or possibly out in the community, and trying to foster a safe place for members to meet. They also like to create a first East Providence Youth Pride organization, which will be a subcommittee of the advisory council. That's something they're looking forward to do in the next few months. They also like to create safe spaces to assist new and current businesses in East Providence. They felt that there are some businesses who are of their community that are not as visible as they would like, and they're here to support those businesses and also assist any new businesses that would love to East Providence. They also would like to set up queer job fairs in conjunction with Safe Space in helping these businesses look for people to hire. So we'll be doing some job fairs, and also to create more creative ideas and visibility around town, like outside Grove Avenue. You see the rainbow colored sidewalk. They're looking to do something a bit more like that throughout East Providence with the support of the council and members in their community. Some of the great things also that come out of my office is that the city celebrated its first of many Puerto Rican flag raising event this past June with the youth dance group, along with some refreshments. Again, all those costs come out of my office. And we celebrated also the 31st annual Neighborhood Day celebration over at Ana Moniz Park. This is the 31st year, and I've been part of the 17 of the 31. It's a great day. It's a fun-filled, hot day. With a 19 tournament, which comprised of high school and college teams that play in this tournament. We have face painting, police and fire demonstrations were there practically all day. We gave out hamburgers and hot dogs. This is a huge cost out of my budget because it's something that's been going on for 31 years, and it's something that was free that we give to the community. I feel that we should continue to have this tradition. And Ana Moniz, who did a lot for this community, is a big proponent in keeping this going. And again, we just celebrate 31 years, and we're looking to celebrate in years to come. We will also be celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month this month and right into October with a flag raising event with music and food. That's going to be on October 5th in the evening. I welcome you to join that to hear some music and some poets and some possibly some guest speakers on that night. And once we do that, then we go right into November and we celebrate Native American Month with our friends from the Native American community. And then from there, as you know, we celebrate Martin Luther King Day. And then also we finish off with Black History Month in January. We're looking to bring back the school involvement this year with Martin Luther King Day and Black History Month, where the kids, they paint their interpretation of Dr. King, and we put it in the city council. I've been doing it for years and years, and hopefully, we can do that again this year. The last time we did was pre-COVID. I think it was 2017, 2018, and the kids look forward to it because they sing from the chorus, and some kids do some acting, and I think it's really good to have mom and dad and grandparents come out again and support these young ones. I'm still doing affirmative action. EEO's a part of my position. One thing that's changed since Mayor De Silva came over is I am involved in all aspects of interviews to ensure that's an equitable and fair process. Prior to Mayor De Silva coming, I was quote unquote put on timeout for about 6-7 years due to previous administration in terms of how they want things done. But that's an old story. That's a long time ago. But I'm here to, again, ensure that there's an equitable and fair process. We're hiring people of color, people who look like me, who sound like me, and putting women also in position of power to make change for the future. So I'm happy to continue to do that. I also continue to oversee the East Providence Prevention Coalition. As you know, we just celebrated, not celebrated, but we recognized Overdose Awareness Day last week, which is very sad. It's an epidemic that's been going on for decades now. The East Providence Coalition continues to have the alcohol stings. We've really been out there sending youth decoys out to get these establishments who are selling to underage minors. We're also sending them out to do tobacco stings. And unfortunately, it's a high number. It's a high number of establishments doing those things. And I think that with the members of the coalition doing this hard work, it continues to fight on. I'm also just to bring you up to speed again, I'm also the community service coordinator. So I deal with individuals who have to do court-ordered community service. They come see me, let's say DUI or whatever the case may be. I deal with individuals who need community service. And I put them throughout the city of East Providence, let it be the garage, a dog pound, maybe outside in front of the Weaver House, picking up garbage or painting, whatever the case may be. I also do that for students from East Providence High School who need so much hours to graduate from high school. They come to my office and I put them, let's say, tag them with a police officer, a firefighter, or something within the city hall in order for them to complete their service to graduate. I'm also the city's municipal integrity officer. So I deal with a lot of constituent complaints. They come directly to my office every day, from somebody parking their car too close, somebody's shrubs not being cut, to you name it. So every single day, I'll deal with those issues. I try to put out the fire. I mean, I think that's my job, is trying to put out the fire before it gets big. So with the help of a lot of the department heads, let's say the police department, it's one-on-one talking. How do we deal with the issue before it hits 6 o'clock news? So I guess that's my job, to ensure that it's done properly and with total respect and dignity, and then close the books. That's my spiel this afternoon. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Mr. Pina, is there anything you don't do?
Yeah, I'm trying my best, sir. Well, he rags me about lunch. Sometimes I'm in my lunchroom at 2 o'clock having a steak and cheese, and he walks by and tells me, "Oh, well, you got to eat healthy." I'm trying, Marcelo.
I just have a question. Thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
for everything that you do for the city. It's well recognized and appreciated,
Yes, ma'am.
by not only by us, but by the community. So thank you for.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. I noticed that the confidential secretary is no longer in the proposed budget. Is that something that you felt like you didn't need? You can handle all of the hats that you wear, including organizing and answering the phone
Yeah,
calls. You don't
yeah.
need another set of hands to help you with any of that?
So she is physically not in my office anymore. The question, thank you. She's physically not in my office, but she does a lot in helping me pay my bills and running through Zorbio and making some phone calls for me. I mean, she is busy, but I'm thankful that she's still there, that can help me out if I'm not in the office. She's there to kind of help me out still. But it's a huge loss. But I'm grateful for what I have right now.
So I don't know if you circled around that question. Is there a reason why that position is no longer in your office?
Yeah, so there was a person that was an HR analyst, left the city, moved on to bigger and better things. So she stepped into that role, interviewed and got that role to fill that gap in HR.
Okay, so the So you're borrowing a secretary from a different office?
So affirmative action is kind of under human resources. We basically police the policies and procedures that HR is actually doing what they're saying to do it. So we are essentially the same department.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
That why it shows a decrease in the total
Yes, sir.
budget? It's that position?
Yes, sir.
Because you're down from what, 183 to 158?
Sir.
Is that the only decrease? The only reason for?
That's it, sir.
I've been to several of your programs. They were all top shelf. I think that especially the neighborhood park day, I've gone to maybe the past 4 or 5, but this year it was touching to see a group of young men who were in about their 40s who told me they were pretty much some of the first kids to go there, and they've stayed together. Some of them are teachers, some of them are, other professions, and a little bit of everything. And they were there together and just standing back, watching, I think, some of their past and taking part in it all. And it was great to see the point of the day, strong neighborhood and about peace and keeping a good neighborhood together. The splash pad for the little kids, the talent show, there were all the things that went on that day. Cotton candy I stayed away from. But
I did too.
yeah, thank you for, as the councilwoman said, thank you for all that you do.
What Mr. Pena failed to mention also is that they do have a parade earlier in the morning that day.
Yes,
And
I marched in that parade. You march in the parade.
Well,
The
this is the
mayor was
first-
in the car.
I say this is the first year I didn't march in it in about
right.
10 years, actually.
That's right.
Well, that's right, you
However,
joined us.
I joined
Yeah.
much later, yes. And I would say that it's ordinarily it's done in memory of someone that you lost that year,
That's correct.
is what it is. And they plant trees and they have bricks. But the event goes on throughout the day. They have basketball games for various ages. They have music all day long, pretty much. It is a very entertaining evening, and I think
Yeah, the young,
every park should celebrate something like
the young man, Jamal Jackson, who you named the tournament after, who lived across the street from the park, and died at a young age, tragically, health related, not for any other reason. And he was going on to profession, was a firefighter?
Sorry, was becoming a firefighter.
I'm a firefighter. It's very sad. It's nice to see his family and friends in the neighborhood have been carrying on that tournament in his name. To see his family there. Overall, it was just a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, enough of you tonight, Mr. Pena.
Thank you so much.
I'm only joking with you, by the way. Thank you. Good job.
Next item will be community services, be the library department.
I don't think we've met.
Hello, nice to meet you. My
Nice
name
meeting
is
you as
Meredith
well.
Bonds Harmon. I'm the current acting library director. For confident all of you are familiar with our public library system. We have 23 full-time employees and 6 part-time employees across 3 locations. Our main branch, the Riverside Library, and also we have the Fuller Creative Room. I'm sure you're familiar with the variety of services we offer between lending materials, both physical materials and electronic materials. We answer questions and provide computer usage, wireless usage, and programs at all of our locations. I have lots of numbers and I won't drown them in you, but I'll share just a few that are good highlights of what we do. So in this past year, we had over 1,000 programs with 17,000 people attending. We have over 98,000 physical materials, meaning books, magazines, DVDs. We also have over 176 electronic materials. That includes ebooks and audiobooks. So these are all for East Providence residents with a library card to borrow for free. One thing that we did this past year in our effort to reduce barriers to library use is we eliminated overdue fines. And that was really special and important to us to offer to the community. And we saw it make a big difference with people coming back to use their library cards. We had over 158,000 visits to our website. The EP High School yearbooks were digitized this past year and wildly popular. You can find them on our website. In addition to the things that you might expect a library to offer, we offer some of the out of the ordinary things. We have something called the Library of Things, where we allow patrons to borrow items that you might not want to buy, like a laser cutter or a, no, I can't think, a paper shredder or certain tools or just things that you might want to use one time or try out before buying. So we try to do things that are helpful, relevant to the community, and a little outside the box. This summer, we offered our first camp out, where patrons who registered slept in tents out on the lawn on Weaver at Weaver Library. Also, as it was mentioned previously, we participated in the city's first Pride celebration by hosting a drag queen story time on the lawn on the day of the Pride parade. We're also in the middle of having permanent Storywalk podiums installed on our lawn, thanks to DPW, so that we can really fully utilize the outdoor spaces that we have. During COVID, we really came to realize how important outdoor space was, as well as indoor space. I have so much that I could say about the library, but I wondered if you had any questions related to the budget or if there was anything I can answer.
One question, President, if I may, increase of about $54,000 total. Is that just because of regular salary increases and benefits, et cetera?
Yep, I can explain the line items that are increases. So our part-time salary line item did go up, and that was because not all of our part-timers are at $15 an hour, and we're really seeing that 15 is the place we need to be. We are also seeing increases in utilities, so heating, electricity, telephone. We've seen big increases there, as well as just general expenses like the cost of our technology or software, advertising, printing, training. So we're just seeing an increase. But then also, because there is an increased demand for electronic materials, we are seeing Ocean State Library's fees increase. And that is the consortium that we are a part of, so that all the libraries can share our materials. So those fees have gone up because there's more and more demand for electronic materials.
Understood. Thank you.
Would that be covered under the purchase professional service that Ocean State?
No, that's under Ocean State Libraries right below it. That one is up by 10%.
I got a question about the opera money. And it's maybe more towards Malcolm. So that is accounting for the offset, the cost of running the library, correct? At 175,
Revenue.
That
did it
was-
revenue, correct?
Yes, for the, excuse me, the ARPA money was to bring back some employees that were vacant when COVID started. So we went through the budget. If we had any vacancies that we thought we could bring back because of that, we brought them back. And so you'll see that in 4 departments, I think. I remember police being one, library being one. I don't remember what the other 2 were.
Was there any increases in employees from 22 to this proposed budget?
Same FTEs.
So why would that be to fill in vacancies if it's the same amount of employees?
Well, because you can use, this goes back, we used ARPA last year also.
Correct.
So this goes back to 19, I guess, and the vacancies we had, whether it was full-time or part-time. And so we went in and said, well, okay, if we brought those people back, we're allowed to pay, use ARPA funds through 2024. December 30th.
opera money used last year to fill in vacancies?
Yes,
And that was a line item in last year's budget.
yes.
I don't remember that. I remember opera money being revenues in police, which was 226,000, or in this department in last year's budget. My question is, first, that's one question. Second question is, this is in here, this is money that's gonna evaporate in another year or so. How do we make up these differences in these newfound money as line item revenues? How, in a year or two from now, how do we plug in those holes that we are doing that right now with opera funds?
Well, I know what we were originally planning on doing was to use the bonds that were dropping off, but I do believe we're now going to use those for the middle school, if the bond passes. The way when we put this in and talking with them, the way they want us to do is actually slowly increase taxes so that that's not in as a revenue item anymore. And it seems a little odd because let's just say in this department, if we did it the way they wanted to, we'd raise taxes for $175,000. And then the expenses would actually go over an ARPA, so we'd be seeing $175,000 surplus. But the reason why they want you to do that is when the expenses drop or when ARPA drops off, and you've already got it in your budget. I guess you'd say the downside of that is they want the city to increase taxes now instead of in 2024. So the question is, do you do it gradually? Do you do it at the end? Do you find something that drops off like bonds to fund it? So we thought we had a plan till last year when they found out we've got another $148 million project coming down the pipe.
So Malcolm, to a request that I made earlier, and I'm sure you haven't been able to address yet, how much was put into this budget for opera funds in salaries?
About 800,000.
So how many more years will that money carry us till?
We're trying to get a qualification. They tell you you can use it until December 31st, 2024, but if you've already got a plan for it, then you can use it to 2026. Now, the question is, are they talking about, well, we've got a plan to use it here? I don't think they mean that you can use this for salaries. Are they talking more of a project? You're trying to redo the seawall and it's a 3-year project. So we may be able to use it at least till December 31st, 2024, and maybe to 2026.
The way I see it, I know no one else is going to agree with me, but you gave a great example. Seawall is a one-time use and you use it for those purposes. Even if you build a building, for example, but to plug in salaries that in 2 or 3 years when that money runs out, I think to me, that doesn't make any sense because we're going to have to fill in those gaps at some point. Now you're saying tonight that, you're raising taxes, anticipating those shortfalls eventually. It's either you do it gradually or you do it all at once. It's to me, you'd rather not even have the money or utilize that money towards, other projects like the seawall as an example, versus trying to plug in budget holes with salaries and positions that what happens after the money runs out, tell these people that, they no longer have a job, sorry, your funding's run out. Oh, you have to keep them. You have to continue paying those salaries. It just doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense last year. And again, doesn't make sense again this year that we're plugging in these holes with that money for that purpose.
Malcolm, correct me if I'm right here or not, but in 2025, we have about 600,000 of bonds that are going to mature. And in 2026, we have about $1.1 million of bonds that we're going to.
That sounds.
So by
that sounds right.
2026, we'll have about almost $2 million of pretty much freed up money.
Correct.
You're saying that money is allocated or going to be allocated, or is that money going to be specifically for those salaries that we're anticipating that in another 3 years from now, that will cover those salaries in addition to.
Originally, it was gonna be, when you said, well, that question was raised, how do you pay for this in 3 years when it runs out? And the original one was, well, we got bonds dropping off that would cover that. And that is one of the acceptable uses for ARPA money, is to bring back people that were laid off, or vacancies, when COVID had started. So that is a valid one. The question is, again, that's a mayor's office, a management call on where do you want to spend the ARPA money? But I think a decision's been made exactly how we're gonna resolve that issue in 2 or 3 years when that money runs out. Because we had a plan, looks like the plan, it still may be good. It depends on, you would think the middle school bond will go through. If it does, then we'll have to reassess.
No, that was my point last year, and it's again my point this year.
But that money was accounted for at one time, right? Because they were already in the budget, they got laid off. Shouldn't that money still be in the budget? So if I'm here today and I'm laid off, whether it's for COVID or whatever it may be, it would be in the budget. And I'm called back within the year. Or
It was-
possibly two.
And I don't remember the exact date, but it was as of, this date, if you've got vacancies that you want to bring back, you can use ARPA money for. Under the theory that we could be losing revenue.
Right.
For whatever reason, hotel money, meals tax. So I know the mayor, when this came up, he was like, well, we're just gonna hold off on hiring these people and kind of a wait and see on that. And when this popped up, all right, well, we can bring them back, because we were trying to figure out how, if you've got lost revenue, where do you find it? So it was in the budget, but the revenue may not have been there the following year.
Yeah, but there's a number of changes that we made, and I'm looking at the FY 22 budget, right? And we did have ARPA funds as a line item in the library for 176K effectively. But we also had library department revenue that came by way of fees and fines, which have been erased, right? There are no more fees and fines.
Some
Well,
printing and copying.
right, but returning a book late, as I always do, you don't get fined for that anymore, which is, nice. And I think that was a smart thing to do, because that disproportionately hits people who, need the library services. So it makes sense. And Malcolm, there's also a portion of ARPA with regard to the city that has to do with city's lost revenue. The city can attribute a certain amount of that ARPA allocation specifically to fill in lost revenue from the preceding year, or what we estimate to be least lost revenue, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years is, we have a tough enough time projecting 1 year. 3 or 4 year planning is important for sure. We're also going to see things like the Kettle Point TIF continue to mature, which in 2009 that property was paying $67,000 in taxes to the city. And now it's something like $1.7 million of assessed value, right? And that TIF, as that TIF continues to mature and the term comes to completion, all of that assessed value is going to be taxable property for the city of East Providence and not going to finance a bond, right? So there are a number of things that are coming due to the city that will factor into that calculation 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I was happy to see. So the last year we had a little bit of a tug of war. I think it was last year or the year before, but the initial proposed budget in the library cut the library's budget. It wasn't a ton, it was like 150K. But I think we learned through that process that not at least level funding your library puts you in jeopardy of losing state money, right, for your infrastructure, et cetera. So this was actually the very first budget that I looked at to make sure that we were at least level funding, and I was glad to see that, the allocation was actually increasing, so.
Yep. I was very happy to hear that the General Assembly decided to fully fund library state aid. So our state aid increased by 66,000 this year.
That's excellent.
Any other further questions? Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Borges?
Next item would be budget session for Public Works.
Continuation.
Good evening. I think we spoke quite detail regarding Parks and Highway at the last meeting. I think you'll see with a lot of the budgets that we're going to discuss tonight. They're all pretty, there are very minor changes to a lot of these budgets. Main changes really come in areas where, we've seen increased costs due to supply chain, just general costs going up, so on and so forth. So, I don't know, if you'd like me to go through each budget, if you have questions regarding.
I want to start off with building inspection and work your way all the way down to the central garage. That will be engineering, streetlights.
Sure. So building inspection, we are seeing minimal changes. The only real big change is an increase in technology software, which is just an increase in cost for our permitting software, which we typically see obviously coverage of that through our revenue.
Dan, on here, it looks like the electrical inspector and housing resource, rehab specialist, that position looks like it was absorbed into something else perhaps, or are we not gonna have an electrical inspector in this division?
No, we will. We're actually just looking to hire someone. We promoted John Almeida, who is our electrical inspector. He's now the building official under Rob Walker. So actually, I apologize, the increase that you see in part-time temporary pay is to cover the cost of that electrical inspector, which was previously covered as half of that salary was covered with CBG funding. So we're just simply moving that back to this this budget to cover the cost.
All right, run that by me again. So the part-time position salary on here is effectively to hire the electrician inspector.
It'll cover the cost, yeah, the electrician, and that will also cover the cost of a
upgrade.
part-time clerk that we have currently on staff.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll move on down to the next department.
Engineering.
Yep, so engineering, give me a minute here. Increases you'll see here will be mainly in technology and software. We are currently running extremely outdated software in the engineering department. I'm looking to begin to upgrade that software so that we can continue to work with a lot of engineering firms that, share plans, CAD files, so on, GIS data with us. This will just bring us up to, current standards and allow us to year after year, fund the licensing to have the most up-to-date software in that department.
That's an increase of about roughly $16,000.
Correct.
Any questions from the council? Next.
Streetlights, that one, no change. We intend on turning over ownership, a lot of the state streetlights, and we hope to see a significant savings this coming year with, the completion of the LED program. So that really hasn't changed. That's sort of the forecasted number that we were given by Rise and an associate that worked for the city last year, as you may recall. So no change to this budget.
What is the completion percentage rate that we have so far to date?
I'd say we're probably about 70%
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And all the state roads are completed, 100.
The state roads are completed. We're working with the state now to begin that transition to move those off of the city ownership and give those to the state. So yeah, we're about 70% there.
Is that it? Question? Okay, next one, please.
So
Refuse
refuse and disposal.
disposal.
This budget is seeing an increase that just based on contractual obligation with MEGA. So we'll see an increase in that budget for obviously the cost of their services. You will see an increase in the rubbish contract. I simply removed, so the way we pay MEGA is we pay them for disposal, and then we also pay them for their cost to do service. From a billing standpoint, it's a lot easier for me to pay them out of the two line items. So I simply moved the reduction of the 665 to what line item is it? 54,210, the recycling contract. So you'll see obviously an increase there. They add up to one another based on the increase. So it's more of a budgeting, a payment. It's easier on our end to pay them out of the two line items. We know we can track it better throughout the year.
Can you speak for a second on the increase in rubbish disposal costs, which is substantial over 3 years? I think we can attribute a certain amount of that to the fact that costs for everything have increased. Also, can you kind of estimate how much of that is the result of, rejected loads and things like that?
Yeah, so the increase that you see in the services are just contractual. I want to say it's 2%. Don't quote me on that, but it's written into the contract. We have increased our disposal charges a bit to account for, rejected loads and increased disposal cost over, the city's tonnage limit. So we do have a limit throughout the year. If we do exceed that limit, anything over that tonnage is charged at, a premium. We've actually done really well from a recycling standpoint. City is actually one of the top in the state for, deferral to the landfill. So our recycling rate is really good. And we've also done quite a bit of enforcement throughout the summer, tagging bins with, yellow stickers, inspecting recycling bins that don't have, that have trash or rubbish in them. So we've seen a significant decrease in rejected loads. And I will say Donna in my office is fantastic at calling resource recovery and yelling at them when they reject a load that doesn't look like it should be rejected. So we're on top of that constantly.
I bring it up because this is something, people talk about, well, I can't control my taxes. My taxes go up. That's out. This is very much something where people have an impact on, like what you put in your recycle bin, what you put in your trash, right? That can impact your.
This can certainly impact it. Unfortunately, the people who, are constantly getting tagged are not learning the lesson. It's the same neighborhoods over and over again. We do our best to try to enforce it, but it is something that if everyone in the city did a better job at recycling, we would not see some of these overages from a disposal cost standpoint.
I'm just curious, what general area of the city that keep getting violations?
See a lot in Riverside. Yeah, I mean, they're scattered throughout, but there is a portion of Riverside and a portion of, central East Providence as well that you consistently see it.
How do we check that in? Do drivers literally open up the top, or are there cameras on trucks?
Yeah, we have a full-time employee who typically is responsible for the DPW yard, our recycling facility at DPW yard. He'll go out on a bi-weekly basis and actually, lift up the lid, inspect what's in we're not digging through the barrels, but
Right.
You know, the people who are constant offenders are, you know, throwing plastic bags right on top. I mean, it's pretty easy to
Yeah.
pick up. So.
One thing I've noticed, would you agree that the city in general looks better in terms of cleanliness? I think people are over their initial, oh, I want to be able to put bags on the sidewalk. I don't like these containers. I need more than one. I've talked to people who now say, I've got space sometimes left. I've got 6, 7 trash bags and so the city seems better. I think this was a great program and a great investment overall.
I would agree.
And I just have a question. I know part of the enforcement was they would tag ticketing people. Can you speak to how much probably not.
From a
amount.
ticketing standpoint, I mean, typically we're, you know, putting a yellow tag on it. We're not ticketing, you know, individuals regularly. I cannot speak to the number of violations we've given out, but I mean, I can certainly get you that number.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious if you knew off the
Off
top of
the
your,
top of my head.
yeah, because I know a couple of people had mentioned it. I think it's $50.
It's $50. It comes through my office through municipal court and they come in to see the judge on Thursday nights if they want to fight it.
Fight it.
Yep.
Fighting it.
Yes, the judge will usually be pretty lenient for the first one if they weren't aware. When they do pay the ticket, we can in OpenGov pull the picture. So, sorry to steal you, Dan. So what they do is they will, Migo will pick up the barrel and it will take a picture of what is inside the barrel. So, we will actually provide that picture to the resident so they can see it. And we'll also give them a list of what they can and cannot recycle. But it is a $50 fine and we have had quite a few more than, yes. A lot of them are coming from multifamilies and the landlords are the ones that have to pay that. So, that's where some of the confusion's coming in a little bit.
Right.
with them.
'Cause I think the city does a really good job with informing property owners of what should be and what should not be recycling. And they do a great job with those leaflets and those pamphlets that go in the tax, bill, the water bills. But again, it's not hitting necessarily the tenants living there or the residents living there, right? It's going to the land. So I think in the multifamilies, because I've noticed that in areas, particularly with English as a second language, they don't understand or didn't realize that you can't just throw a bag full of trash into the trash, the recycling bin, because to them it is the bin, is a bin. And that's where, and what's happening. And so I think it's a lack of understanding. So maybe, I don't know if there's more that it can be done, because again, if
Yeah,
it's going
we've-
to the property owner, unless the landlord tells the tenant, hey, I'm getting a fine and because of your behavior, it can't be resolved.
Right. Yeah, Don and I have actually looked into, and we've applied for some grants to, you know, fund mailers that'll actually go out to property address.
Mhm.
So ideally, we'll look to, you know, that this coming budget season.
Okay,
So,
that's a
yeah.
good
It
idea.
goes to the landowner and not the
It depends on the property, but yeah, if you are,
ticket, I mean,
if you own a 3-family house, you know, the owner of the property live in, you know, Cranston or Warwick or somewhere else, you know, California. So those violations will get mailed to, you know, the property owner.
all the
Mhm.
violations, but I was referring to the actual literature itself.
Yeah,
That should go to the household.
right, but no, but it's inserted in like the water bill, the tax bill, and that would all go to the property owner.
So in some cases, yeah, the water bill will get mailed, you know, to California and not
And-
to the property.
And aren't a lot of those notices in 2, 3 languages?
They are.
So people do get them in Portuguese or Spanish,
We are
English.
trying to be very diligent in the clerk's office and handing them that we've made photocopies. And we do hand it out every time.
Yeah, I thought I
there's a
saw.
Violation, so they have one.
The violation I got, I didn't get a yellow tag. I got it from my wife because I was putting pizza boxes. She said, you can't do that because the lid has grease. I said, but it's cardboard. I said, no. So I got a blue sticker. It wasn't the yellow.
Yeah, I mean, typically, and we're pretty good about, I mean, we're not violating people for it. This is like second, third
Yeah,
offense. So, I mean, if you haven't figured it out by then, I mean,
to the councilman's point, right, you think cardboard, nobody's gonna think that it's staying, and even the plastic,
Yeah.
right, it has to be clear, it can't be, the you get your milk jug that's white and you can't see through it, you can't put that in. It's very specific on what you can recycle and you can't recycle. So it's nobody's one person's fault, right? It's just a multi-system.
And I think people are doing, they're looking at the actual bottle can that has the recycling
Mm.
emblem on it and they're saying, oh, it's recyclable.
I would agree.
Anyway,
Education is
all
important.
right.
Yep.
Moving.
But
right
you,
along.
you guys, I think you do a good job. It's just a matter of hitting the right people.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say as a whole, I mean, the enforcement program has made extreme,
Oh, I'm
it's been
sure.
extremely helpful in reducing rejected loads at the landfill.
Well, thank you and Donna for that hard work.
And thank Donna. She's
Amazing, that's for sure. All right, I have no other questions.
Next is public buildings.
So public buildings, again, some minor changes, increase to the building repairs account. This is just reflective of, historic spending, sort of the average spending amount that, that we're putting into city buildings for miscellaneous repairs, whether they're, gutter repairs to, carpet replacement, so on and so forth. Small increase in office expenses to sort of cover, year-to-date expenses, historic spending from this past year.
What's the part-time line item?
No change to part-time. What's the amount? Is that what?
Yeah, no, is that for custodial?
Yeah, so we have two part-time custodians. So that covers the cost of those positions.
Okay, so 5 full-time, 2 part-time,
Yes,
for
that
a
sounds
total of
about right.
6.
Tell you. It's 7 full-time. One, however, is covered as part of the library. So that position is budgeted as part of the
The
library.
libraries, okay, thank you.
Final comment.
Central garage.
Central garage. Increases we see here, again, gas, oil, utilities. Then we see an increase in technology and software. We recently upgraded our diagnostic program in in the central garage, helps us to, diagnose vehicle issues. We're also looking to implement a system that will actually be part of each of our vehicle fleet. That'll help us to not only save on fuel cost, but preventative maintenance. We'll be able to see diagnostics in real time on all our vehicles. And this is included in that increase.
Just a couple of questions. The property line item, it looks like there was a 20,000 increase. What is that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The property line item, it went from 18 to 38,000. Is that property repairs?
Do you have an account code?
Technology software.
Or is that what that?
Yep,
was?
that was
Oh.
what I had just,
went- If you go to scroll down a little further on the page, I think it gives you the detail, Councilwoman.
yes, this is covered a fleet management software on vehicle tracking, as I mentioned.
Okay, I see where it breaks it down. Thank you.
Yep.
And then the other one was the part-time again. It looks like, is that, what position is that for? In part?
Those are, we typically bring back to retirees or hire part-time staff to assist with, vehicle maintenance, day-to-day activities.
So they're like as needed people that get,
Yeah, typically we brought back retirees. They have, 75 days based on the retirement board. They'll come back for 75 days. We'll bring back retirees from the city that are familiar with fleet, to help maintain and assist, you know, the full-time mechanics.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I did notice at Pierce Stadium was, I don't know if it was the agenda, but
We didn't put that on,
one,
not on the
so-
agenda.
So So I just want to make one clarification. The discussion we had on Bhopal earlier, was brought to my attention that the 11 o'clock, it's the curfew during the week, Monday through Friday, 10 PM. Saturday and Sundays, 11 PM. So the curfew on the weekend is 11 PM, not 10 PM.
Next budget. You can either choose city clerk or law. Fine, okay. Pretty sure you guys are well aware, of my department. There's 4 municipal clerks and 1 court administrator. We have been busier with the recycling tickets, the camera tickets, and the state has changed requirements on how to obtain certain vital records. And that has increased our vital records requests generally double, sometimes triple every month now. So we've been fairly busy and generating some revenue, so it's nice. And we do have a cut on salary that the mayor was gonna speak to. I don't know. No, okay.
You mean a cut in salary?
Mayor had dropped the city clerk salary to 50,000. We're on 19. Mine's on. He was gonna drop the city clerk salary to, oh, there it is. Perfect.
Salary.
Top step is 64, I believe. I'm getting acting right now, so I'm unsure. We are saving right there. In the meantime, we're not paying my salary, we're only paying 1. All of the clerks in the city clerk's office are all at top step. There will be no more increases except for contractual. Whatever we are allotted yearly on that, and everyone is at their 5-year longevity. Everything will stay pretty status quo.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Also President, with your permission, I just happened to walk in. I see that you're addressing the city clerk's budget. We sat down and discussed the clerk's budget with the idea that the assistant city clerk or deputy city clerk has really been doing an extraordinary job in handling the duties and functions of that position. Things are running smoothly and seamlessly in that office. And I know that there had been discussion prior by the council members about deciding what they wanted to do in the future with the city clerk position, as far as whether it would be more feasible to hire a person that would be tending specifically just to the council. So we reduced that budget. However, we entirely understand that that's up to the council to determine what exactly it is they want to fund that at. Also, keeping in mind that there would have to be a charter amendment or change if you were to change the way that office is currently staffed. But looking at the whole situation, we looked at what that pay was set at. We looked at that pay having been raised previously, against our recommendation. And we thought that it'd be important for you as the council to make that determination on how you wanted to fund that. But we did fund it less with the idea that in the future, a future council could have, instead of having a deputy or having a clerk overseeing the office, it really would be a savings to the city because we've demonstrated very well that it can be run by the deputy clerk as she's doing now. But I just wanted to bring that explanation to you, knowing full well that you'll have final say on that. That's how we budgeted this year. Also, if you just assume that the charter is not going to change between now and the election, right? A new council will not appoint a new clerk until January until the inauguration ceremony. So that person, assuming that person gets paid, they're only going to wind up getting paid for 10, maybe 9 months, you know, because it takes time to come on out of the budget year. So, I mean, I don't know that it would make sense to fund that at what the previous clerk was getting paid regardless, because basically going to miss 3 months out of the year when, by the time that person comes on, assuming that's how the new council decides to do it. That's absolutely correct, Councilman.
So the last, when we had these discussions, I believe it was last budget season. The reason for that, for the increase was to make it fair and equitable for someone in that position. That is a council appointed position per charter. The duties don't change, okay? In fact, this council passed unanimously to have the council duties and, you know, the city clerk be under the auspice of the city council 2 years ago. If I get reelected, I don't plan on changing that. There's been discussions and Councilman Rodrick's put together a list of qualifications for who the next city clerk would be in the future. You know, if we want someone of quality, you're gonna have to pay that person the same pay as what other city clerks are getting throughout the state. Okay, and that was the main reason why that was brought up to that point in time. What is the reduction in that salary as of right now, this proposed budget?
$30,000 reduction.
I want to make this recommendation now and I'll make it again in the future when it's, you know, the time comes. I want to make the recommendation that that salary be restored to that position. That's an important position. I understand you did a great job. But that is a council appointed position per charter. And if we are going to select someone to be in that position prior to January, after November 8th, we'll know who's going to be sitting here or not. Then we should, that should be there to, you know, get the qualified person for that position. He, she, whoever that may be. No one's going to want to work for that reduced salary, knowing what the competition is throughout the state and what the averages are for a city clerk.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Are you completed?
I'm complete unless there's any other questions. Okay, next would be the law department.
Thank you. No change in the FTEs, no increases in their salaries are contractual. We continue to operate with one executive legal assistant and a legal secretary and one, so two persons there. There's a slight increase of $10,000 in the purchase professional services. That salaries, that's not a salary. Both, as you know, Dylan Connolly, who's assistant solicitor, and myself, we're not city employees. We just bill the city. So that comes out of the purchase professional services line item, which was increased by $10,000. I had hoped to convince the mayor to increase the hourly rate, but instead he just kept the hourly rate, just increased the amount, recognizing that maybe just have more hours of actual work. And other than that, everything else is pretty much level funded or a slight increase based upon costs.
So it's a quick question. So that 10,000 increase is to pay Dylan and yourself for the services.
Yeah, extras, you know, to pay the bills that based upon those hours, extra hours.
We're not discussing council, but I understand that the council budget also was decreased by, what was the amount? Council budget. It's proposed, we're not discussing council, but I'm just pointing out a difference here. Council budget has been decreased from last year.
I did not prepare the council budget.
Nor did I.
I was just curious as to if we pay Dylan out of the council budget, again, through a resolution that we passed a couple of years ago, why is there an increase? Is that just for the
Dylan's
solicitor?
Dylan's not exclusively paid from the council. He's also paid from that line item too. He does prosecutions. Sometimes he does zoning. When he fills in for me, he bills under this line item. So $75,000 or whatever that amount was is not exclusive to just Dylan doing his own job. That was something that you guys removed. But he still bills under this 225. So his hours are still covered by that.
Under the part-time, who's billing under that, that line item, 51116?
I think early on, we had a intern. It was a very small amount, but then she wound up leaving. And then we've just been budgeting that. So that was very early on. We had a woman who was, I think, a 2L, or excuse me, paralegal studies from Boston University. And we had hired her to do some work for us in preparation for the negotiations of the contracts. That's where that is. But then after that, she left and we have not filled that position. I will tell you that it would be my goal, and Dylan and I have just not got to it, but we would like to find someone competent for, a minimum salary of about $15,000 to really update all the city ordinances and recodify them to reflect the mayor form of government, to get rid of those instances where it says town administrator, or we just haven't had the time to do it and the time to devote to it. So we've been very busy this year. I've negotiated on behalf of the city all 4 of the union contracts. They included the police and fire, which were in negotiations now, and part of last year was EPPT and USW. So that's something that would normally be farmed out, but we've done that in-house and saved a lot of, unfortunately, that takes a lot of time. So when I'm doing that, I can't do some other stuff, but based upon the hourly rate, you see substantial savings there for that. But that, I would say, a lot of my time has been spent in the last year and a half negotiating these contracts. Not always, don't go as, they're not, there's just a lot of meetings and a lot of prep and a lot of, as you know.
Yeah, contracts are difficult, can be. So just to clarify, what's the hourly rate that yourself and the city solicitor?
My bill rate is 170 an hour, and I think Dylan,
70?
170.
Mhm.
And I believe that Dylan does the prosecutions on a flat fee. I can get you that exact amount. I think it's, I don't know if you pull that up, Malcolm, his rate on the flat fee. I can get you that. I think it's about, I want to say about $4,000 a month, maybe a little lower, maybe a little higher, depending upon what it is. And then he bills, I don't know his rate. I know he bills higher than me when he does other council stuff outside of that, prosecutions and stuff. I think it's, I might want to say it's like 190, but I can give you that number.
And then when in the event, I mean, we've had a couple of instances where neither of you have been here, somebody from your office, is it billed under your hourly rate, or is it billed under a lesser hourly rate or a different
That's fine.
solicitor?
When Dylan and I are not here, when I'm not here, it's the 170.
Always, okay.
Question, is there a process, or I don't see it in the budget numbers other than solicitor, so yourself, we have an assistant solicitor. At times, if there's litigation, we know we've gone outside, but do we hire other attorneys? If we were to, would that have to come before a council vote? What is the process? Can I go out tomorrow and ask an attorney to do work for some project I'm working on, then have him or her send an invoice to the city to be paid without coming to this council?
That's a council question. I guess the best evidence of what the council did was with a comment when you decided as a council to go hire an outside attorney to look at the eminent domain issue, and that was a council decision. Under the charter, the solicitor and the assistant solicitor are the sole legal counsel for the city. So unless there's a conflict or maybe level of expertise that we can't do, generally we're by charter supposed to handle most or all the work for the city. There are times when, like the green energy contract, which is a very specialized deal, which neither Dylan and I have any experience on. The mayor through another portion of the budget went out and hired a legal counsel to assist him in negotiating and getting that contract reviewed. So, but generally, as you know, that under the charter, we serve as both the city solicitor serves both as the counsel to the mayor and to the city council.
Pretty much all bills, all hires would have to come up for a council vote.
That's my understanding of how it should happen.
Well, so I guess I have a follow-up question to that. Any item in the council budget, does that all have to, so if I want letterhead and to do a mailing to constituents for something that's going on that I need to address, I need to come before the council to ask to spend that money?
Let's call it. like
Depending
it
upon
is.
the amount, I would think that for legal advice, when you're paying an attorney, yes. For attorney, yes.
But where does it say that?
It doesn't, but here's the misconception from if you're looking at it from being transparent, that I can own an attorney money, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I can own attorney money and farm out some work to him and include that money that I owe him in that billing. We'll never know. So to be transparent about it, I think it's only necessary that if we were to go out, or any members here was to go out for an attorney, it should be passed through the council. No different than we did with eminent domain. Eminent domain, we voted on it as a collective bargain, as a collective whole.
I think that's a different situation entirely. We're talking about making a council decision on a piece of property that requires extensive conversation and research. It's not the same as asking someone to draft ordinance or their, again, professional opinion that is conflict with the council or maybe the administration. That's the whole reason why we put that monies into our budget, was so that the council have the ability to get professional services that they felt they needed if they had to go outside of the city.
Provided that we at least discuss it, whether it's here in public or in executive session, so we have transparency as to what exactly is going on, because at any point in time, any lawyer, you're saying, it's the money that we have in the council. I don't think that's fair and right. Essentially, that we collectively should have a say in that and vote on that.
So if the majority doesn't want, so I'm coordinating or working on a piece of legislation, but the council isn't in favor of it, you have the right to tell me I can't do what I'm supposed to do as a legislator because you don't want me to use outside counsel.
What I would suggest that it goes through the legal department first, which is the right way to doing things, is go through the legal department and have it found out that way. If our attorneys don't work out, then collectively we could say as a body that we should vote on whether or not we should go out and obtain an attorney. Because for transparent reason only, I'm saying this, only that reason is that I can go out and hire an attorney for whatever it may be, or hire an attorney, or owe an attorney. And that could be built into the resolutions that we're working on, or I'm working on, the ordinances that I'm working on, whatever it may be. And no one would ever know the difference. For transparent reasons, I say that we should be more transparent in a way that here's what I'm going out for. This is what the attorney's billing rate is. Because if he's billing at 170 and you're hiring an attorney at 370, why should the council pay 370 when we got someone for 170?
No, I can understand that point, but to what the solicitor just said, they've had a very busy year. They have a lot going on, so they're not maybe easily available to do all of the work that needs to be done in the city. And so why should I have the solicitor farm out work that I want to somebody of his choosing that's getting paid than somebody of my choosing that I can work with?
Well, I think any of us could suggest doing something like that, but we got to vote on it.
I don't know where
we've
that's,
gotta
I don't know where it says
discuss
that
it.
we have to vote.
So
on
we
it.
could just spend $100,000 or more?
Not that's being a
that's-
little bit too extreme. I mean.
Well,
how
no,
much-
it's, what's the
is.
limit?
It is.
What we could do is we could put a resolution in place then to say that in an event that a council member wants to go out for an attorney, it will be transparent and voted on.
I don't have a
publicly
problem with
so the public-
transparency because I don't think like that. Like I would never think that. I
I'm
would
just saying
see
for,
any-
for the public
But-
wise, for public wise and being transparent, that we should put something in place. At least we know what's going on and how much money. So for an example, you're working on something right now and we only have 30,000 remaining in the legal budget.
Mhm.
But yet now we decide for eminent domain or for one other reason, we're going to hire an attorney that we know at some point is going to exceed that amount. In the same breath, we don't know what you're voting on. You don't know what I'm doing behind the scenes as well, as far as obtaining an attorney. So expense wise, we can be over and beyond. We can look at the budget and say, oh, we got 50,000. But unbeknownst to any one of us up here, that You have a hired attorney. Councilman Morado hired attorney. I hired an attorney. And that in itself could be exceed the 50,000 in itself that we have as a balance.
But you're
So-
talking about hiring an attorney that represents the council as a whole.
No, individual. I'm talking about if you were to hire an attorney to do a resolution, to do an ordinance, to work on whatever it may be for the city that, whatever project that you're working on, that nobody here knows. We don't know how much that's gonna cost. We don't know, again, what the legal, what that you. So now, as a council as a whole, some 3 months later, 4 months later, we collectively say we're gonna hire attorney for, and I'll just use again as an example, eminent domain. Now we hire an attorney. Now unbeknownst to us, we look at, when we hired the attorney for eminent domain, we said, well, how much money? We all talked about how much money we had in it. We knew exactly how much we had in there. But if you're hiring an attorney, I'm hiring an attorney, and another individual or council person is hiring an attorney, you got 2,500, I got 5,500, 10,000 over there. Now the balance is not 50,000. The true balance is actually 35,000.
So then
We
is
don't
this, is this simply just for using professional services?
Well, I would say as a whole collectively, we should just let us all know what we're spending. I don't
Yeah,
think that's a
if-
problem or issue to let us all know what's
If
spending.
we're accruing, and I guess this is probably more a discussion for the city council budget than it is for the legal. I mean, it comes up now because we're talking about
Legal,
lawyers,
yeah.
right? But to your point, Sabrito, if we are off encumbering cost and the rest of the council does not know it, right? How do we manage the budget, right? And I know that there's only a set amount in that line. I think it's 75,000 in our legal, and then we have, sort of small amounts in other categories, right? How do we know that we're not going to blow through that budget?
Do we get a quarterly report from Malcolm?
Right, if the expenses have been reported and submitted, right? But while those expenses have been encumbered, we don't know. Right, until the bill is paid, until the bill is realized, we don't know what is the potential liability out there for cost.
It's with all departments.
I don't know that it is all departments. I mean, everything has to go through purchase requests and contracts and everything else.
Well, let me just put my 2 cents in, it's, what, I want to call it like it is. I don't really care at this point. Feelings are hurt because, and Councilwoman Susan and I have hired an attorney on 2 different occasions to do a resolution or an ordinance. Our city solicitor and assistant solicitor, as far as I'm concerned, they are advisors to the council. They're not the end all be all, okay? And until someone on this council tells me, shows me, point out to me where this is written, that we can go out and hire someone. I don't care if it's charter, ordinance, show me, teach me, open my eyes.
I don't think that
Until then, I'm elected also, like everyone else that's sitting up here. And I'm going to do what I think is right to represent my constituents. And if that means going outside counsel, because I trust someone outside what we currently have at most cases, that's what I'm going to do. Now, eminent domain, we're talking thousands of dollars. We're not talking 1,000 or $800 or whatever it was. Talking thousands of dollars. Obviously, that's going to require a council discussion. But when we need help with something, and I have an idea on what I'm working on, and I trust that person, I want to go to that person.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a question of hurt feelings or any of that. I think it's a question of how much money is there and how do we know how much money is going to be there?
Well, so then I think the question or the conversation should be, how do we as a council report the spending so that the council knows? Because again, another line item would be office supplies, right? So if I decide to order, again, letterhead and envelopes, how do I know that everybody isn't putting in an order for letterhead and envelopes? And now we've surpassed that amount, right? To council presidents, we don't unless we communicate that.
Or maybe there's an individual allocation for individual council members and for example, what the Ward 2 budget is for that particular item. There's probably a number of ways to crack the nut.
Right. What I'm saying is to my knowledge, since sitting up here, there has never been a system that I have been made aware of how council spends their budget other than if there's a need, they spend and then they submit the receipts. I've held many of functions that I have submitted a receipt for payment to cover the function, and then cover the rest of the function on my own. So again, it's, I've never had this question, and it's a good question to have and a discussion to have, but what would we do? How do we move forward where you don't feel like, I don't feel like I need to ask a permission in the budget to utilize our budget. It's like a credit card, right? Your house, you have a credit card between, in your household, and this is the funds, and just don't go over the funds, but you're not being earmarked. If you need to spend something, you need to ask permission first, or we need to take a vote on it first, and then you can make your purchase.
From a legal point of view, this is the first time we've had it in the budget. So that's why in the past, you never had to worry or be concerned about it.
Mm.
I think from a budgetary position, we usually don't spend any money from.
Oh, no, I know, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's usually money left over. in
The
that
most
account.
frugal
I mean, the
department.
most we spend it on is either business cards or stationery or whatever it may be. That's primarily about it.
And if I could just add, as far as a conflict or either way, it goes through a legal department, for final approval, whatever
I know, but that's after the fact.
no, it goes through the legal department, and then those recommendations are done and changed.
When somebody hires an attorney.
Correct. Those-
So it
I'm-
goes to
I'm
the
talking
legal
about- I'm
department
talking about
first?
what's drafted. I'm talking about what's drafted, whether it be an ordinance or a resolution. Goes through the legal department. Legal department, solicitor, assistant solicitor.
Mhm.
Has called me or Councilwoman Susan and said, I recommend making these changes. Okay,
Right, but what I'm referring to is when you go out for legal advice from another attorney outside of the legal department that no one else is aware of.
correct. Like I said, when the legal advice I've gotten outside, it's not thousands of dollars like eminent domain. There's a line item in our budget that's called professional services.
Right.
It's been utilized by other councils other than us. It's been a longstanding practice, and there's nowhere written in charter or ordinance that indicates otherwise.
I just see
Wanna
it
read it?
as, and I get it. So if I reach out to, instead of reaching out to another solicitor outside of the city, another attorney outside of the city, I then reach out to one of our in the law office. They get to bill us for their, versus an outside entity billing us. Is that what it really comes down to?
What it comes
That's
down
what-
to, we're fully aware of what's happening.
But you're not aware when I'm submitting requests for resolutions and ordinances to the city solicitor. Does he notify you that I'm making?
No,
That's him?
he's not, but I see the billings. I do see Dylan's billings and he sends it and I see it right on there for approval. So I approve his billings and yes, it tells me exactly
Right,
what he's
and
billing
I'm
for.
assuming that you get billing, you approve the billings also when an outside attorney.
No,
is gonna
not
do
for
it.
outside attorneys.
Then who approves that billing?
Goes through the legal department. That's what the
But
solicitor.
where's that line
to
item?
do.
What she's trying to get at, where's that line item for outside legal counsel? You read it?
I just want to say a couple of things, and this is a policy decision for the council to make, not for me to get involved. By the charter, it is the city solicitor and the assistant city solicitor shall be attorneys in good standing. The city solicitor shall be the attorney of the city and legal advisor of the mayor, council, and all other officers, departments, and agencies, and shall perform such other duties as may be prescribed by the mayor or the council. So, Councilwoman Souza indicated that, if she has we draft many ordinances for you, for whatever, and whether it's not whether you have the votes to pass them or not, that's not, we draft many ordinances that don't go anywhere because the votes are not there. So,
That's irrelevant.
well, you indicated, let me just finish. You indicated that, if you wanted to work on an ordinance
no,
and if
yeah,
the majority, excuse me, if the majority of the council, let me finish, please.
No,
if the-
I don't need you to finish because I know what you're trying to do and that's not the point. You said you were busy. You're very busy, your department, which I totally agree. You have helped with ordinances. You do look at ordinances that are brought to you that you or your department has not crafted, and you do give advice and you do give direction, and I appreciate that and I do take that. But again, I don't have to use the city to do the city's legal department. It says at the discretion, right? If I recall correctly, you just read at
Yeah. Again, this is a policy decision. The council needs to
It is,
decide
it
as a
is.
body.
There's no policy
there need-
currently
there
that
need-
states in the council.
The council needs to decide as a body how and when legal
Correct.
counsel is engaged.
Correct.
Generally, legal counsel is engaged on behalf of the entire council, not individual members. If there was an ordinance or resolution that needed to be drafted, that this, whatever the law department could not or would not do, and I've never said we wouldn't do anything, and I don't remember ever indicating that we couldn't get to it, we get to it as best we can. Dylan and I work very hard on it, but that's a decision for the council to make as to how a legal counsel is retained in the future. That's not for me to decide. I do. So that's really a
Thank
policy
you.
decision.
Yeah, no, it is. Thank you. And nothing against you or your office. Like I said, you guys do a good job, but again, it doesn't have to be the end all. And if the council wants to create a policy on how we track and spend monies, then that's something that we should discuss. And maybe have an executive put that on the agenda for executive session. But it's never been something that we've had to deal with before. And I didn't realize that it was a problem until today.
No.
Or
Well, again, it wasn't
concern to
anything we
people.
had to deal with before because we didn't have it in legally.
We
didn't
put it, we
have-
put it
we
there
didn't
for
have a
reason.
budget.
Right, we put it there for a reason. And it was so that the
did.
council could utilize it when they felt like they needed to. That was the whole purpose.
I still think this is a discussion
Yeah.
for the council section of the.
Well, we were on legal, that's why.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I have a lot to discuss on the council section. So,
That being said, that concludes all the budget session for this evening. Anyone else have any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Anyone like to make a motion now at this point in time to adjourn?
No,
Hey, we got more.
still have a
Much
whole
more.
agenda to go.
What do we have?
we have much more to go.
Resolutions, We got
New business, mayor communications.
Want to stop that in a long time.
And what is our curfew? Is it 10 or 10:30?
10.
10.
Creeping up on 10.
Good evening. You have two appointments for canvassing board. And they're both recommended from the bipartisan, the chairperson of the Republican Party, both bipartisan nominations. First one is Christopher Diaz for the canvassing board, appointment to term 3/2/22 to 3/1/28. And the second is a William Murphy canvassing board appointment for term 9/6/22 to 9/5/28.
Council confirmation.
Both.
So the first one's on for council communication for council confirmation.
Move to approve as read.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Next item, please.
We have council confirmation for William Murphy to the canvassing board, new appointment, seat 4, term 9/6/22 to 9/6/28.
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Deputy Clerk, roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Thank you. Next item.
Second item on mayoral communications is the Bloomberg Asphalt Arts Project. It's being held on Saturday, September 10th and September 11th. Paid alongside artist Anna Dugan for the Bloomberg Asphalt Mural Project. The grant funded project enables artist Anna Dugan to paint an asphalt mural between Hennessy School and Pierce Field. The artist is requesting approximately 10 people per hour to assist in the creation of this delightful mural. Interested parties and on the docket for people interested in signing up.
Mr. Gaza?
Next, reports of other city officials, report of the city solicitor, report on settlement agreement and release of Cheryl Curdy versus City of East Providence, Rhode Island Commission of Human Rights, number 21 ESE 7153.
Thank you. In executive session, the council got an update and approved a resolution authorizing the settlement of the claim of Cheryl Curdy not to exceed $45,000. And the report on the, and that was a vote of 4-0. And on the report of on the collective bargaining firefighter local tentative agreement has not been ratified by the union yet, and therefore there was very little discussion or action taken on that item.
Mr. Solicitor? Item, please.
Next item, DPW Director Daniel Borges. We are going to vote to approve handicap parking request at 10 Ide Avenue. if anyone.
Mr. Borges, I just have a couple of questions, please. So I did reach out to the those who applied for the permitting. I noticed that a couple have not provided all of the information, at least not to the council in our docket of the reasoning for which they are requesting the parking sign, other than having a handicap placard that allows them to have a handicap. In the ordinance, it requires a proof of residency, via an ID, and an affidavit with a reasoning why. I'm not so much concerned because I did call them and speak to them, so I did get that information myself. I just wanted to double check with you the 40 Reynolds Ave, so number C, that we're approving for Eric Miller. In front of their home, it's probably 3-car wide. That's in that area. When I spoke to the mother, she said that it was okay positioning that sign where the second path was for the side door, as opposed to just, I don't know where your men were gonna place the handicap sign, or if you were gonna take the whole front of her.
Yeah, we've been, we'll give a car length. I mean, we've been in contact with them and we'll coordinate that location
Okay.
upon approval.
Yeah, so
Yep.
yeah, she had, she discussed that it would be, in case she hadn't talked to you about it, it's on that
No, we've
side.
been in contact. I had to get some additional information from her. I mean, with regards to missing information, I'm not aware of any being missing, but
Well, I said that maybe it wasn't transmitted to the council in our packet.
I gotcha.
You know, I say missing because I didn't see it in the packet.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that it wasn't in your office, so that you don't have it, but it wasn't provided to the council. Well,
I
it's to
provided what
myself.
you gave me, Dan.
I mean, I can-
And the same thing with Leonard. Again, it's a larger space, so because that street is narrow. And I wasn't quite sure either on that location because the side door is right at the driveway. So I wasn't sure what the usage was for that. It
It
wasn't indicated in the,
should have been, I'm looking at 16 lettered now. That was. I mean, I don't know if I can give, is this information, should it be part of is it just for the council's review or, I mean, because there is, personal information on here. Okay, yeah, I mean, that information is part of the sign request. It specifically states, where where they want, the signage placed. So we'll certainly, again, we'll work, before we put up signage, I mean, I typically always work with the resident to make sure it's, where they want it so that they
Sure.
can easily access their home.
right, if we could just have that information, I guess, provided to the clerk.
Yep, so I forwarded whatever you gave me, Dan, I did forward to them. I do not put that in the public packet. It's only for council FYI.
So when I looked on the online packet, I didn't see where it,
What he gave me is in there, so for let's go to the first, so 10 Ide Avenue, he has the letter behind that
that one's all set.
is the right, so
It's in
anything that,
16.
whatever he provided to me is what I provided to you.
All right, so I'm not sure where disconnect.
Okay.
I know that it says that the
I-
the gentleman is handicapped and wants to have that access in front of the home. But when looking at it, the entrance that the gentleman would use is on the side of the house where they park the vehicle. And that's a narrow street, so I just want to be conscious of the parking on that street and reducing it to less parking and it being a conflict like we've had in other neighborhoods where somebody uses their driveway, but is trying to keep spot blocked off of their house.
Yeah, I mean, typically we can talk about this, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
sure. We can save it for them then.
Yeah, I mean, it's either we review each one if, we ask the resident if they have, a van that they need to provide access. We're pretty thorough when we go out there and cite these locations. The engineering department reviews these as well from a, parking standpoint for parking. But I mean, typically, most important is, access for these residents to, get safely into their home. So we do our best to accommodate that as part of these.
Thank you. So with that, I make a motion to bundle the recommendations made by the Director of Public Works.
Those in the best interest to bundle these or do them one by one? Okay, all right, so we got a motion on the floor to bundle these.
I'll second the councilwoman's.
We have a second. Deputy Clerk, call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Council President Brito.
Motion to approve. Request.
Mhm.
B
A
and
through
C.
C.
A second.
Roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Moving right on down to page 11. Those of you who are following us, letter C, resolutions we've done.
Yes, sir. This is for discussion and possible vote. Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Communication Systems, Inc. for a new access control system for the police station. The sponsors, Council Vice President Rodrick and Councilman Cahoon.
Mr. President, this is in regards to the antiquated system at the police station of egress and ingress within the building. They have a combination of key fobs, keys. They can no longer reprogram keys. As the chief said to me, that not every patrol officer, as an example, would have access to maybe the evidence room. So they might need to have different securities and locks, and they just have antiquated technology. And this is an up-to-date system that would allow the police administration to have proper security within its own building. As far as the funding will be split between Google and Opera funding, and the IT director can give specifics on the separation of the funding if we have questions on that. But basically, the police chief and his administration cannot reassign locks within the building, a very serious security situation. So they're requesting to update that technology.
Any further discussion from the council?
Kelly, do you have dollar sign on that?
Before we do
I don't
anything,
have
I
that.
just want to move to extend tonight's curfew by 15 minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Council President Brito.
Aye.
Unless Malcolm, do you have that total figure for the police?
Looking for it now. I don't see it.
Of the summary? I don't have the whole resolution.
Says, one moment. Thank you.
Half and half.
32, 387, 33, 108.
$32,387 opera funds and $33,180 from general funds.
What's the total?
$65,495.
Did come from the way of an RFP.
Okay, and you confer that this is a technology need, that
Absolutely. So for their accreditation.
accreditation, okay.
Thank you. There's no discussion from the council. Councilman, you want to phase that into a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with Communication Systems, Inc. for a new access control system for the police station in the amount of $65,495 to be split between the ARPA and the general fund.
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon, Councilman Morato, Council Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza,
Aye.
Council President Brito. Next resolution is the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Northeast Revaluation Group LLC for the appraisal and revaluation of all real property within the city of East Providence. The sponsors, Council Vice President Rodrick and Councilman Cahoon.
Again, it's that time of year where this is appropriate. I'd defer to the city solicitor for the background.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. As you know, the council passed a resolution last year or earlier this year allowing the city to extend their revaluation cycle by 1 year. So as a result of that, we had to renew the contract with our agency to finish the evaluation for this upcoming year. So it's really just a contract extension in the amount of $147,200 because the original contract run out.
Say that number one more time.
Sure, $147,200.
Is that coming out of opera money too?
No, general funds. And so you'll get a new revaluation as of 12/31/2022. That'll carry over to the next tax year.
It's a pleasure to council. Anyone have any questions?
I don't, and I move to.
Have a motion on the floor to approve. Anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay, Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon, Councilman Morato, Council Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza, Council President Brito.
Aye.
We do not have any introduction of ordinances. The next item will be adjournment.
Adjourn.
Second.
Call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.